The two of them leaned against the railing at the side of the road. Isabel Thorne stared out at the glittering lights of the city below, at the stars and the moon, at the shapes the night wind carved through the mountain forest. A serene, beautiful smile played on her lips. Ethan Vance's smile was just as genuine. She was admiring the night, and he was admiring her. As far as he was concerned, the entire breathtaking panorama of North Mountain couldn't hold a candle to 1,000th, no, a 10,000th of her beauty. Ahem! A sudden gust of wind swept past, and Isabel coughed abruptly, shrinking her neck and pulling her coat tighter. Without a word, Ethan began shrugging off his own jacket. "You should keep it on, it's cold," Isabel protested. But Ethan was insistent, draping the jacket over her shoulders. He straightened the collar, the two of them standing face to face, their bodies nearly touching. An impulse took him, and he asked tentatively, "Izzy, can I? Kan Yukio?" An involuntary wave of revulsion rose in Isabel. It was her condition, something she had absolutely no control over. Ethan felt her body tremble slightly. He didn't look disappointed, just filled with a deep, aching tenderness. Isabel took a breath, a hint of guilt in her eyes. After a moment, she extended a hand to him, forcing a smile. "Thank you, Ethan. I had a really wonderful time tonight. So we'll come back every day?" Ethan asked, his fingers closing around hers. Isabel's lips curved. "When I'm not busy, we can't." Achoo! Seeing that his wife was catching a chill, Ethan moved to button the suit jacket he draped over her. But he was slender to begin with, and the jacket wasn't particularly large. Given Isabel's generous figure, there was simply no way the buttons would meet. "See? Being this blessed is its own kind of trouble," Ethan muttered with a roguish grin. "You!" Isabel flushed with a mixture of shame and anger, kicking him sharply in the ankle. "You can't be serious for 5 minutes. You're impossible." Ethan winced, but his grin only widened. It was pain, but a happy sort of pain. All right. Let's go home before you really catch a cold." Once in the car, Isabel fastened her seatbelt and shot Ethan a resentful glare. "I'm starting to think this whole rogue persona isn't an act. You're just a natural-born degenerate." Ethan glanced over at her as he buckled his own belt. If this counts as being a degenerate, imagine what a real one would be like. Shameless. "Thank you." Isabel looked at his incorrigible face, shot him one more glare, and turned to look out the window. But a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. That damn man. He was always so utterly shameless. She'd gone from being infuriated to the point of apoplexy to, now, barely even being angry. Time, it seemed, was quietly trying to prove something. Ethan started the car. "Ready for round 2? Full throttle." Isabel looked at him, hesitated, then shook her head. "Let's take it slow. It's dangerous going down the mountain. You're the boss." Ethan steered with one hand while pulling out his phone with the other. He opened a message from Milo. "Milo, Caleb Shaw. Family's supposedly in investment banking. Background is hard to track, very mysterious. I need more time." Ethan didn't reply. He put the phone away, his mind churning. Isabel noticed his sudden silence. After a moment, she asked, "That guy who was chasing us tonight, who was he?" Ethan shook his head slightly. "I don't know him. He was bidding against you at the auction." Isabel said thoughtfully, "Did he used to date his girlfriend, or something?" Ethan was speechless. Why does your mind always go there? I swear on my life, I never touched any of those women. Not a single one. It was all for show. Isabel's red lips parted. "What about the woman in the Chong Sam? You're going to tell me you don't know her?" Ethan smirked. "Jealous." Isabel rolled her eyes. "I can't be bothered with you." Hith. Ethan chuckled for a moment before explaining. "I met her a couple of days ago when I went out for a meal. She's the general manager of a restaurant. We've met a grand total of twice. We're not close, and I have no intention of getting close." Isabel said nothing. "That's your business." "We're really not," Ethan said, adding a little embellishment to make his case more convincing. "She asked for my number, you know. I didn't give it to her." The words had barely left his mouth when his phone rang. He glanced at it. An unfamiliar number. "Hello, Ethan, did you make it home?" The car was currently navigating a winding road on the backside of the mountain, and the cell signal was weak. But even through the static, Sienna Sterling's sultry, alluring voice was unmistakable. The atmosphere in the car instantly grew awkward. Isabel stared at Ethan, her eyes filled with a faint mockery. Ethan coughed dryly, his brow furrowed. "Where did you get my number?" Sienna didn't explain. Instead, she said, "My friend was a bit rude to you tonight. I saw him chasing after you in his car, and I was a little worried, so I just wanted to check on you." Ethan's tone was lukewarm. You could have just asked him. No need to ask me. His cold shoulder was palpable. Sienna laughed awkwardly. I imagine your wife is with you. Afraid of a misunderstanding? Hiv. Well, I won't disturb you then. Bye-bye. After hanging up, Ethan smacked his lips together and offered Isabel a sheepish explanation. I'm a member at her restaurant. She must have looked up my number in their system. Isabel's voice was cool. It has nothing to do with me. Ethan felt a pang of frustration. What the hell was Sienna Sterling up to? She sure had a knack for picking the worst possible times to call, and now that he thought about it, there was something naggingly familiar about her. He just couldn't place where he'd seen her before. He sighed, about to put his phone away, when it rang again. This time it was Victor Vance. The car was just approaching a sharp, blind curve. Headlights appeared from the other side. Ethan didn't rush to answer the phone, instead tapping the brakes lightly. In the next second, a massive truck roared around the bend, its speed so great that the entire chassis tilted to its limit. Ethan's focus snapped into place. The truck wasn't braking. It was veering directly into his lane, as if aiming for him. He yanked the handbrake and wrenched the steering wheel, sending the GTR sliding into the opposite lane, narrowly avoiding a head-on collision. Isabel held her breath, terrified by the sudden violence. At such close range, if not for Ethan's lightning-fast reflexes and superb driving, they would have been smashed straight off the mountainside. Was the truck driver insane, driving that fast on such a narrow road? Before she could even let out a sigh of relief, as the GTR swung around the curve, two more massive trucks appeared ahead, driving side by side, completely blocking the road. Ethan saw they weren't slowing down. In fact, they were accelerating, barreling straight toward them. He knew instantly they were his target. Hold on, he snapped to Isabel. He executed a drift turn, but the distance was too short. The rear of the GTR was violently struck, sending the car fishtailing wildly. On the curve, the left rear wheel shot over the guardrail, hanging suspended over the abyss. As another truck hurtled toward the passenger side, Isabel's pupils contracted. A scream escaped her lips. Ethan's jaw was tight. He shifted gears and slammed the accelerator. The modified 1,300 horsepower engine wasn't just for show. A burst of flame shot from the dual exhausts, and the car lurched back onto the road, rocketing up the mountain. But just then, the first truck that had passed them began reversing back down, completely sealing off the road ahead. The situation was impossible. To their right was a sheer rock face, to their left, a cliff. The GTR was trapped, about to be crushed into a metal pancake. There was no escape. In a split second, Ethan made his decision. He spun the car in a stationary drift, pointing the nose directly at the cliff. At the same time, he seized Isabel's hand. Izzy, I love you. Isabel's mind went completely blank, staring at the abyss before them. She seemed to understand what Ethan was about to do. She squeezed his hand tightly and closed her eyes. Vroom! Ethan floored it. The GTR launched itself off the cliff. In the same instant, the three trucks collided with a deafening crash. As the GTR became airborne, Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt, simultaneously reclining Isabel's seat all the way back. He threw himself over her, holding her tight, one hand shielding her head against his chest, the other gripping the back of her seat to keep from being thrown loose by the impact. Bang! The car landed on a steep slope. After the initial violent crash, the chassis began to tumble, end over end. Crunch! Crunch! With every rotation, a deafening shriek of metal echoed through the night. The car vibrated violently, as if it were about to disintegrate. A GTR, built for speed, was no Volvo when it came to a crash. Fortunately, when Ethan had the car modified, he'd added 2 extra airbags to the standard 6. Now, all of them deployed, providing a crucial cushion from every direction. Isabel's face was buried in Ethan's chest. Raw terror sent scream after scream, tearing from her throat as her arms instinctively clamped around his waist. Ethan maintained his protective posture, one hand guarding her head, the other locked onto the seatback. But without his own seatbelt, his body was thrown about with every tumble of the car. If not for his exceptional arm strength, he would have been flung clear several times over. Crunch! Crunch! He didn't know how long it lasted, but it felt longer than a lifetime. He had faced death countless times, but this time, he cherished his life more than ever before. He couldn't die. The Ice Queen in his arms couldn't lose him. Not now. Finally, after snapping several trees in two, the car was stopped by a massive 100-year-old tree halfway down a mountain. The entire chassis was deformed, almost unrecognizable, but it had landed upright, and Ethan was still lying protectively over Isabel. She was still screaming, seemingly unaware that the car had stopped. Wifey, you're gonna burst my eardrums. Ethan said weakly, his head resting against an airbag, his chin brushing against Isabel's forehead. Ah! After another moment of screaming, Isabel finally clawed her way back from the depths of her terror. She trembled as she opened her eyes, seeing only darkness. In the silence, Ethan's heartbeat was deafeningly clear against her ear. Protected by Ethan and the airbags, Isabel was mostly unharmed. Her right shoulder ached from the impact, and her legs had been banged up so many times they were numb with pain. Her right leg, in particular, was completely numb, and a stabbing pain shot through her ankle. Feeling the rise and fall of the Playboy's chest against her face, she asked in a trembling voice, "Ethan, are you okay?" Ethan shifted slightly, his mouth now against her neck. "I'm out of strength," he said, exhausted. Isabel felt the warm breath on her neck, and her body stiffened. Her voice trembled even more. "Ethan." Sensing her shiver, Ethan abandoned the unexpected perk of their situation. He fumbled to recline his own driver's seat, then pushed himself over toward it. As he moved, his lips brushed against her cheek. "For the record," he mumbled, "I didn't do that on purpose. I just can't lift my head." Isabel shakily raised a hand and felt around. To her shock, she touched a tree branch as thick as her arm, right above her face. It was early March, and the tree's branches were bare. Without leaves to block it, fractured moonlight filtered into the wrecked car. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, Isabel could now see that the branch she was touching had pierced through the front windshield. It was positioned directly over where her body had been, and she could just make out bloodstains on it. Given the distance between the branch and her, Ethan had been wedged between them. When the car stopped, she'd felt a powerful force press him down onto her. It must have torn into his back. "Ethan, you. Isabel's heart leaped into her throat. She looked at him, slumped in the driver's seat, gasping for air. Words failed her. Tears streamed from her eyes. He wouldn't have been hurt if he hadn't been protecting her. Ethan turned his head to look at her, a bitter smile on his face. "Izzy, can you kiss me?" He looked incredibly weak. A large patch of skin was scraped from his forehead, weeping blood. There were other injuries behind his right ear and on the back of his head, though they were hard to see in the dark. Hearing the finality in his tone, Isabel clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. Fat tears rolled down her cheeks. For a moment, she completely forgot to even look for her phone to call for help. "Izzy, do you love me?" "I don't know," Isabel choked out. "I don't know what love is. I really don't." "Then, can you grant me my last wish? Even just a hug would be okay." Ethan's breathing grew weaker. Isabel wiped the tears from her face. After a moment of sobbing, as if she'd made a momentous decision, she climbed over the tree branch. A sharp pain from her right foot made her bite her lip, but she ignored it. She wrapped her arms tightly around Ethan, hesitated, then closed her eyes, leaned forward, and pressed her soft, red lips against his. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, Isabel instinctively pulled back. "Ethan, don't die. Please don't die," she cried, her voice breaking. Suddenly, she remembered what she was supposed to be doing, getting help, not grieving. But the car doors were jammed shut, and her purse was nowhere to be found. Frantic, Isabel searched the cramped, mangled space. Aided by the faint moonlight, she finally spotted her bag in the back seat and yanked it toward her. But when she got her phone, she found the screen was shattered. And worse, there was no signal. They were on the back side of the mountain, in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't surprising. Just as she was sinking into despair, she heard a loud bang from the driver's side. Startled, she looked up and saw Ethan, the same Ethan who had been at death's door moments ago, bracing himself with one hand on the seat and the other on the car ceiling, viciously kicking the driver's side door. He looked like he'd just finished a hearty meal. There was no trace of weakness about him. Tough enough to crash, but not weak enough to kick open. Ugh, what a waste of over 8 million yuan, Ethan sighed. He seemed to feel her gaze on him and turned, a look of pure innocence on his face. "Izzy, why are you looking at me like that?" Isabel stared at the damn man, now full of life, and her breathing grew heavy. Her face darkened. "Ethan Vance," she roared. Ethan's innocent act didn't waver. "Yeah." Isabel gritted her teeth. "You bastard." After cursing him, she slapped him across the face. Ethan didn't flinch or dodge. He took the hit squarely, feigning confusion. "What did you hit me for? How can you still be joking at a time like this?" Isabel shrieked, finally breaking down into hysterical sobs. Seeing her tears, Ethan raised a hand to wipe them away, but the Ice Queen slapped it away. "Get away from me," she yelled. "I'm never speaking to you again." Ethan pouted, adopting his usual shameless tone. "I was just tired. I was resting for a bit. I never said I was dying. Besides, Izzy, that kiss of yours. It was like a super potion. I feel like I could go 10 rounds with a grizzly bear right now. He licked his lips and added with a roguish grin, and so sweet. I'm drunk on it. You? Shameless. Isabel seethed, raising her hand to strike him again. Her first kiss, tricked out of her by this damn man. And under these circumstances, a moment ago, she truly believed he was dying and that it was to protect her. So, despite her deep-seated aversion to physical contact, a mix of gratitude and grief had compelled her to grant his wish. He was, after all, her husband in name, but she never imagined the damn man was faking it. Ethan caught her hand. Seeing that she was genuinely furious, he dropped the act. I was wrong, he said softly. Izzy, don't cry. We need to figure out how to get out of here. This is a nature preserve. There are wolves. As if on cue, a distant wolf howled, then howled again. Isabel froze, instinctively covering her mouth, terrified her sobs would attract them. They sound far away. Don't be scared, Ethan said, then turned back to kicking the door. She was furious, but this wasn't the time for a tantrum. Isabel took her phone and, after several attempts on the shattered screen, finally managed to turn on the flashlight. But when the beam of light fell on Ethan, the Ice Queen shivered and her eyes went wide. The back of Ethan's neck was slick with blood, and a small shard of glass was embedded behind his left ear. His suit jacket was shredded in several places, likely from the windows shattering. But the deepest gash, right down his spine, was undoubtedly from the tree branch that had pierced the windshield. It was still weeping blood. Ethan, Isabel's voice trembled. She wanted to pull the shard of glass out for him, but she couldn't bring herself to reach out. Ethan kicked the door 4 or 5 more times. It was looser, but still wouldn't budge. If Benny were here, this would be a piece of cake. Hearing Isabel call his name, he stopped and turned. Yeah. Isabel was horrified, not knowing what to say. She just pointed to the back of her own neck. Ethan instinctively reached up. When his fingers found the glass behind his ear, he pulled it out without a second thought, merely wincing before he went back to kicking the door. Isabel's jaw dropped. He acted as if he'd just pulled out a tiny splinter, nothing to fuss over. Was he even human? Some of those pretty boy actors she knew would call an ambulance for paper cut. While she found their dramatics disgusting, Ethan's complete disregard for pain was something else entirely. Bang! Finally, the door flew open with a kick. Ethan sat on the seat, taking a deep breath. Isabel was still examining his back. There were several cuts on the back of his head, but they seemed to have stopped bleeding. Only the wound where he just pulled out the glass was still oozing. But what terrified her most was the gash down his back. Ethan, don't move. Let me see your back. Trembling, Isabel lifted the back of his shirt. A horrifying 6-inch-long gash was revealed. The elaborate tattoos covering his back were stained red with blood. Ethan reached back and touched the wound, then looked at the blood on his fingers. It wasn't much. Doesn't look too deep, he muttered. It's fine. I'll deal with it when we get back. Isabel's breathing was shaky. It's still bleeding. How can it be fine? Staring at the wound, she bit her lip. As if struck by an idea, she began taking off her clothes. Hearing the rustling behind him, Ethan turned around, confused. He teased. Izzy, are you trying to leave me a parting gift? I'm injured, but I think I could still manage a little something. Or a few somethings. You, turn around. Isabel was too mortified to look up. My dress. The material is really soft. We can use it to bandage your wound. She mumbled. A warmth spread through Ethan's chest. You silly girl, he said gently. Are you planning on running down this mountain naked? You. Ethan Vance. Can you just stop bullying me for once? I was just worried you'd bleed to death. Why are you so infuriating? Stranded on a desolate mountain after a crisis, already on the verge of a breakdown, and now Ethan's relentless teasing. Isabel burst into tears again. Don't cry, Ethan coaxed. I was wrong. Izzy, this isn't some martial arts movie where the hero gets hurt and the heroine has to tear up her clothes to bandage him. Come on, don't cry. It's okay. My back gets hurt all the time. I got thick skin. It'll probably stop bleeding on its own before we even get down the mountain. He reached for her hand, but she slapped it away again and again. A furious woman, he thought, was like a wild boar, impossible to restrain. He couldn't help but find it a little funny. After catching his breath and feeling some of his strength return, he climbed out of the car. He leaned down and extended a hand to the sobbing Isabel. Come on, if you keep crying, you really will attract the wolves. Go away. I don't need your help, she snapped, wiping her tears. Then I'm really leaving. Ethan made a show of turning to go. You. Isabel glared at him, her chest heaving with ragged breaths. Ethan Vance, I really truly hate you. All right. I was just trying to keep you from being scared, so I was teasing you, he said with a smile. Let's just focus on getting home. You can torture me all you want when we get back. Like hell, I want to torture you. You pervert. Hey. Ethan glanced around, his voice taking on a spooky tone. You better not summon any of those things by talking like that. It's creepy out here at night. The horror movie-loving beauty felt a chill run down her spine. She pouted, wiped the tear tracks from her face, and shot Ethan one last withering glare. Bracing her hands on the seat, she tried to swing her legs out of the car. But the moment she put weight on her right foot, a piercing pain shot through her ankle. Ethan immediately grew tense. Without waiting for Isabel to speak, he ducked back into the car. Bracing himself with one hand on the intruding tree branch, he took the phone from her and shone the light on her feet. Seeing no obvious external injury, he breathed a sigh of relief. My right foot. I think it's sprained, Isabel said through gritted teeth. Without hesitation, Ethan carefully lifted her legs, one by one, from the passenger side and placed them on the driver's seat. Her left foot was fine, just a few scrapes. But her right ankle was already swollen to the size of a grapefruit. Izzy, Ethan's tone suddenly became serious. He looked up at her face, his eyes filled with heartache. I'll carry you. Isabel looked troubled. Just try to control it, Ethan said. Besides, as long as it's not direct skin contact, you'll be okay, right? He was the one with the injured back, yet he was still thinking of her comfort. Isabel's anger completely vanished. That's not what I mean, she shook her head. Your back. It's in such bad shape. How can you possibly carry me? Just help me out of the car first. I'll see if I can walk. Ethan didn't argue. He helped her out of the car. But Isabel's right foot couldn't bear any weight at all, and her left leg was numb and weak. She couldn't even stand. After less than 2 seconds of trying, she grabbed Ethan's arm and slowly sank back onto the car seat. All the color had drained from her face. Sweat plastered strands of hair to her temples. Her breathing was heavy, and her elegant eyebrows were tightly furrowed in pain. Ethan scanned their surroundings. The car had tumbled a long way down. Although the slope here wasn't as steep, given their physical condition, especially with him having to carry her, there was no way they could climb back up. Their only option was to feel their way down. The woods were dense, so at least they didn't have to worry about slipping and rolling further. After a quick survey of the viable paths, Ethan took Isabel's phone and shone it around the car's interior. He couldn't find his own phone. He wasn't surprised. He'd been about to answer Victor's call when the trucks appeared, and in the chaos, he'd tossed it onto the center console. It was definitely long gone. Taking a breath, Ethan went to the passenger side, opened the glove compartment, and, while Isabel wasn't looking, took out the gun inside and tucked it into his waistband. Izzy, listen to me. Stop being stubborn. You're still wearing high heels. Even if you weren't injured, you couldn't walk on this terrain. Isabel still refused. No, your back is seriously hurt. Then we can just wait here to be eaten by wolves, Ethan said with a pout. Isabel bit her lip. After a moment of thought, she said, embarrassed, Can you carry me in your arms? Ethan was at a loss for words. Izzy, we have to get down a mountain. If I carry you in my arms, my center of gravity will be off, and I won't be able to see the path. He turned around, crouched down, and presented his back to her. It's just a small cut, it's nothing. Besides, carrying you is the best painkiller. Isabel hesitated. There was no other way. Filled with guilt and heartache, she gently draped herself over his back. Ethan stood up with ease. The pain shooting from his back was intense, but he didn't make a sound. Holding the phone to light their way, he started slowly down the mountain. Isabel's arms were looped around his neck. She didn't dare move a muscle. Does it hurt? She asked worriedly. Soft, Ethan said in his usual irreverent tone. You. Isabel rolled her eyes in exasperation. After a moment, she asked the most important question of the night. Who sent those people to crash into us? Could it be that guy who was chasing us? Ethan's eyes turned cold for a second. Then he forced a smile. I'm guessing it was him. When we get back, I'll go ask him face to face. A seed of vengeance had already taken root in his heart. Based on Caleb Shaw's behavior, he was the most likely culprit. But what was his motive? Ethan couldn't figure it out. Beyond that, he was even more curious about why Victor had called him. His father never contacted him unless it was important. Could it be that the real mastermind had already made a move? The more Ethan thought, the more anxious he became. But here he was, carrying a heavy load with no path under his feet. It was painfully slow going. He had no idea how long it would take to get down the mountain. Isabel was confused. What did you do to provoke him? He actually wanted you dead. Ethan sighed. I really don't know. Honestly, I'd never even seen him before tonight. Do you think maybe he's just jealous that I'm better looking? This near-death experience would surely leave some psychological scars on Isabel. The reason Ethan kept teasing her was to keep her from being consumed by fear. He never expected that his offhand joke would trigger a woman's frighteningly accurate sixth sense. I think, Isabel began, that the man chasing us likes the woman in the Chong Sam. But the woman in the Chong Sam likes you. So, you're his rival. Ethan found her analysis completely absurd. Where are you even getting this from? Izzy, are you really jealous? Pathetic. Ethan chuckled. A moment later, his tone dropped, laced with guilt. I got you involved in this tonight. I'm sorry. Isabel shook her head without hesitation. You were always helping me before. You protected me when Travis Yates was causing trouble. The truth is, I'm the one who owes you too much. So, are you going to repay my kindness by kissing me again? I'm addicted. Shameless. Liar. The two bickered back and forth. After about 10 minutes, Ethan finally found a small trail leading down the mountain. A weight lifted from his shoulders, and he quickened his pace. Are you tired? Do you want to rest for a bit? Isabel asked. Not tired, Ethan replied, his breathing still relatively steady, a testament to his stamina. Forget going downhill. I used to carry an 80-pound gear pack uphill and barely take a break. Gear, Isabel murmured, then asked hesitantly. What did you used to do? Lately, Ethan had thought about telling Isabel about his real self, but he had no idea how to even begin describing those 8 years. He feared that even a glimpse of the truth would scare her away. Maybe it was better to ease her into it with jokes. Adopting a mysterious tone, he said, Izzy, I have a secret. Want to hear it? I personally have about $1.5 billion. U.S. dollars. In the B&G Bank in the Netherlands. For a moment, Isabel thought she'd misheard. $1.5 billion? That was more than her father, Arthur Thorne, was worth at his peak. But if he had that much money, why was he driving for Uber? Liar. All you do is brag. Don't think I can't see it, Isabel continued after a moment. You have a knack for management, but you don't know how to do business. All you know how to do is squander money. Ethan smiled. You're right, I don't know how to do business. I don't understand finance or trade. But for my line of work, elementary school math is all you need. Izzy, do you know what the fastest way to make money in America is? Isabel thought about it. Fast money in the U.S. usually meant investments, stocks, things like that. But something that only required elementary school math and was fast. Robbing a bank? Ethan's tone became even more dramatic. On the surface, he sounded like he was trying to convince her, but in reality, he was afraid she might actually believe him. This country was built on war profiteering. So, I just followed in their footsteps. I sell weapons. Weapons? You. Isabel tilted her head, looking at his profile. She wasn't surprised. She simply didn't believe a word of it. To her, it was like he'd just said, I invented a new microchip last night in my spare time. Ethan continued. The world isn't as pretty as it looked from here. There are wars every day. Worn-out equipment is a huge business opportunity. The U.S. government takes the biggest slice of the pie. After they're done, small-time players like me can get rich just by picking up the scraps, flipping the second-hand stuff they don't want. Isabel didn't reply, letting him spin his tail. But I got too big, and some people came after me. I couldn't do business anymore, so I hid out of Mexico. The worst part is, HSBC sold me out. Otherwise, I'd have more than $5 billion. Isabel pursed her lips. I've seen this movie. Lord of War, right? It's a good story. I thought you were going to say you were some master thief who robbed banks for a living. I've done that, Ethan said, looking smug. Not banks, though. I robbed casinos, gangs, even Mexican drug traffickers. It was a real thrill. Isabel thought this damn man's stories were getting more and more ridiculous. She rolled her eyes. Were you Batman? A lone hero fighting for justice? Not really. There were a lot of us. No room for heroism, Ethan said, his tone dead serious. At first, I met a big group of friends in Somalia. But hanging out with those pirates, we were starving 3 days out of 9. There was no future in it. So we decided to find a business that would at least put food on the table. But every mission was incredibly dangerous. Casualties were unavoidable. In the end, his voice trailed off, a shadow of grief falling over his face. He looked grim, the words on the tip of his tongue. I really hate drug traffickers, and I really hate betrayal, were swallowed back down. Seeing him fall silent, Isabel muttered, Can't make up any more? Yeah, I'm running out of material. Ethan laughed. I think you have potential as a screenwriter. You should consider it. Well then, CEO Thorne, you'll have to promote me. Casting couch, whatever. Bring it on, I'll be sure to satisfy. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Isabel pinched his arm. Be serious, she snapped, then coughed again. Hearing her cough, Ethan instinctively reached up and touched her face. It was a little hot. She'd already been catching a chill on the mountaintop, and the extreme terror had pushed her over the edge. The Ice Queen was running a fever. "Try to get some sleep on my back," Ethan said, his pace quickening. He glanced at his phone. Still no signal. Even though it was downhill, he'd been carrying a full-grown person for a long time, and he was injured. Of course he was tired. Isabel rested her cheek on Ethan's right shoulder. She'd been feeling dizzy for a while, and now her eyelids were getting heavy. The surrounding woods were dark and terrifying, but being carried by Ethan, she felt a strange sense of peace. "Ethan, do you really like me? Is that even a question?" "Why?" Ethan's breathing was more ragged now. He paused to hoist her higher on his back, the pain making him grimace. "Does there have to be a reason to like someone?" Isabel murmured. "What does it feel like to like someone?" Ethan started walking again. After a moment of silence, he smiled. "You miss them, you want to see them, you want to possess them. You want to feel the evening breeze on your balcony, look at the moon from your window, and wake up in your bed together. There you go again, being a degenerate. Making love makes you love more." Isabel, shameless. "Ethan Vance, you're getting more and more inappropriate." "Ethan, Isabel Thorne, you're getting more and more tolerant of me. I don't want to talk to you." After another 10 minutes, Isabel had drifted off to sleep. Ethan's shirt was soaked with sweat. Beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks and dripped from his chin onto her arm. In the dead of night, the mountain forest was cold, the wind biting. "Ethan, I'm so cold," Isabel mumbled, half asleep, her words slurred. Ethan looked up. The woods blocked his view, and he could see nothing but darkness ahead. But the path under his feet had flattened out considerably. He estimated they were close to the foot of the mountain. "Just hold on a little longer. We'll be home soon." Isabel didn't answer. Her arms tightened around his neck. Her cheek pressed against his shoulder as she drifted in and out of consciousness. Just then, Isabel's phone suddenly rang. There was a signal. Ethan stopped immediately. He held the phone up and saw it was Zoe Russell. But because of the shattered screen, he couldn't answer the call. He tried for a long time, until Zoe finally hung up. He desperately tried to dial 911, but the screen was still unresponsive. The one key wouldn't work. "God damn it!" Ethan swore. As soon as the words left his mouth, he heard Isabel murmur from her feverish state, "Ethan, don't swear." Ethan was speechless. There was no choice but to keep moving. As the minutes ticked by, Ethan's stamina began to reach its limit, and his pace slowed. But he couldn't stop. For one, Isabel had a fever. For another, he was genuinely afraid of attracting a pack of wolves. Fortunately, after another 20 minutes, Ethan finally emerged from the woods. Before him was a small pocket of ramshackle houses. He remembered this place from his Uber driving days. It was horribly remote, a long way from the city. Getting a cab out here was a pipe dream. It was almost 1 in the morning, and the entire neighborhood was silent. Ethan randomly picked a house and knocked on the door. After a long while with no answer, he figured it was empty and moved on to the next one, with the same result. It wasn't until the 4th house that someone responded. "Who is it?" "It's the middle of the night." A woman's voice called from the yard. "Hello, ma'am. Please help us," Ethan pleaded. "My car went off the mountain, and my phone is broken. Could I please borrow your phone to call for help?" "What? Went off the mountain?" the woman exclaimed. Ethan heard hurried footsteps approaching the door, and a moment later, the porch light flicked on. Creak! The metal gate opened a crack. A woman with a plain face peeked out. When she saw Ethan, covered in blood and carrying an unconscious woman, she realized he was telling the truth. Her guard dropped immediately, and she swung the gate open. "Quick, quick, come in. Get inside where it's warm. I'll call an ambulance for you." "Thank you," Ethan said, following the woman into the yard. It was a small, run-down courtyard with 3 rooms besides the kitchen. The woman led Ethan to her small room on the south side, pointing to a warm-looking bed. "Hurry, put her down. The electric blanket is on. It's warm." Ethan didn't hesitate. He laid Isabel on the bed and, while covering her with a blanket, said, "Ma'am, do you have any fever medicine? My wife's fever is pretty high." "Yes, yes." The woman was warm-hearted and seemed even more panicked than Ethan. She rummaged through a cabinet, pulled out a pile of medicine, and handed it to him. "Here, look. Take whatever you need." Ethan was nearly exhausted. He thanked her again with a smile. The woman turned to pour him a glass of water, then picked up her phone to call for an ambulance. "Izzy, wake up and take your medicine," Ethan said. When Isabel didn't respond, he gently shook her. The Ice Queen's eyes fluttered open. "Ethan, are we home?" Isabel's cheeks were flushed from the fever, but her body was shivering with cold. She clutched the blanket tightly. "We're safe, at least. Here, take this medicine first." "MMM." Isabel nodded obediently. After taking the pills, she looked at the woman standing by the bed, confused. "Izzy, This lady took us in, Ethan explained. The ambulance is on its way. Just hang in there a little longer. Thank you, ma'am, Isabel said, then turned to Ethan, her voice full of concern. You're back. Cough, cough. How is it? It's fine, don't worry. The woman blinked, studying Ethan. Sir, why don't I get you some hot water so you can clean your wounds? I saw your back is still bleeding. Ethan shook his head. It's okay. I'll get it treated at the hospital. In truth, his entire back was in agony. The shirt was stuck to the wound, and every slight movement was painful. But with a gun tucked in his waistband, he didn't dare take off his clothes. He had to endure it. Not long after, Isabel fell asleep again. Ethan looked at the bloodstains on the blanket and said apologetically, Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I'll pay you back for this. No, don't worry about it. With what you've been through, I'd have no conscience if I worried about things like that, the woman said, waving her hands. She gazed at Isabel for a moment and smiled. Sir, your wife is so beautiful. Even as a woman, I think she's gorgeous like a movie star. A smile touched Ethan's lips. People always said that hardship bred cruel people, but in his experience, there were far more kind and simple souls in the world. He couldn't understand why movies and TV shows these days either glorified suffering or vilified the poor. He learned through conversation that the woman's husband worked out of town, leaving her at home with their 10-year-old child. Life was hard, but he didn't hear a single word of complaint from her. A woman and child alone, daring to let a stranger into their home in the middle of the night and helping without a second thought. It spoke volumes of her character. About 20 minutes later, the ambulance finally arrived. Before leaving, Ethan made a point to look at the house number and thank the woman one last time. At the hospital, Ethan first got Isabel settled in a room. He then wrapped the gun in his jacket, stuffed it into the bedside table, and finally went to get his own injuries treated. After he was patched up, Ethan returned to the room and leaned wearily against the empty bed next to Isabel's, letting out a long breath. It was a standard 3-person emergency room. An old man was sleeping in the bed by the window. Seeing Isabel's bag was almost empty, Ethan called a nurse to change it. He then felt Isabel's forehead, still burning up. It's okay. The fever should break later tonight, the nurse said. As for you, you have a lot of stitches. You need to lie on your stomach and not move around so much while your 4 is running. Okay, Ethan replied. He gently stroked Isabel's hot cheek. A wicked smile spread across his face, and he leaned in to peck her on the lips. Apparently not satisfied, he then kissed her forehead and each of her cheeks. It really was true. Survive a disaster, and good fortune will follow. The young nurse rolled her eyes so hard they nearly popped out of her head. What had she done to deserve being force-fed this public display of affection in the middle of the night? Ethan, having stolen 3 kisses, was ecstatic. As he was gloating, Isabel's eyelashes fluttered. Her eyes opened a crack. Ethan, are we at the hospital? Yes. Ethan felt a pang of guilt, like a thief caught in the act. Isabel sighed in relief, pulling the blanket tighter around her. I'm so cold, she murmured. Ethan took her hand. You'll feel better after this 4 bag is finished. Try to get some more sleep. Isabel nodded and drifted off again. Ethan let out a long breath. He took his own blanket and laid it over Isabel. Growing bolder, he stole another kiss before he was finally satisfied. He lay down on his stomach on his own bed. He wanted to call his guys, but he was too exhausted. It could wait until morning. He slept soundly until just after 7, woken only by a nurse coming to change the dressing on his back. After the dressing was changed, the nurse started nagging him about payment. If it's convenient, you should have a family member come and pay the bill. Okay. Ethan borrowed the nurse's phone and called his crew, specifically telling Finn to bring the red card from home. Truthfully, he wanted to contact Victor Moore, but he didn't know his number. He'd have to wait for Benny to arrive. After returning the phone, Ethan crouched by Isabel's bed and felt her forehead. The fever had broken, but her beautiful face was still pale and sickly, her lips a little dry. Looking at the still sleeping Isabel, wicked thoughts began to stir in Ethan's mind again. He puckered his lips and slowly leaned in. But just as he was about to touch her, the beautiful woman's eyes suddenly snapped open. As Ethan watched her expression shift from dazed to confused to shocked, and finally to pure, mortified fury, a chill ran down his spine. He straightened up, feigning calm. Izzy, do my lips look chapped to you? Ethan Vance. Ethan instinctively grabbed his wife's hands. I didn't even get to do it yet, he said, looking aggrieved. You, shameless. Isabel yanked her hands free. I had a fever last night. Did you do anything to me? Ethan's face was a mask of righteous indignation. Am I that kind of person? Huh? Izzy, you really think I'm that kind of person? I've been wrongly accused. I swear on my life. I did not lay a single hand on you. Isabel was skeptical. After glaring at him, she sat up and prepared to get out of bed. What are you doing? Your foot is still swollen. Lie down and behave. I want to go home. You pervert. Ethan smirked. Don't make a fuss. That big lug Benny will be here soon. I'll have him take you home. Isabel looked down at her swollen ankle and had no choice but to obey. After a moment, she looked at Ethan at the bandages on his forehead and neck. Her tone softened. Your injuries, are they serious? Ethan, not at all. I'm back to full health. And your back? Did you get stitches? It must. Hurt a lot, right? No, just a scratch. Isabel knew he was just trying not to worry her. She still had a vivid memory of the horrifying wound from last night. Of course he needed stitches. Suddenly, she caught something in what he just said. Have Benny take me home? What about you? You're not coming home? What are you going to do? Ethan, are you going to settle the score with that man? He tried to have you killed last night, and you're still going to provoke him? By the way, did you call the police? This wasn't some simple brawl. You have to report it. You can't be reckless. He was willing to kill. Ethan just smiled and shook his head. I'm not an idiot. Don't worry, I'm going to see Victor. He called me last night, remember? I need to find out what he wanted. Isabel stared into his eyes, still unconvinced. You really can't go looking for him. I don't think his background is simple. Ethan, promise me, okay? Ethan replied cheekily. So concerned about me? Are you falling in love with me? Be serious. I'm trying to talk to you. All right. I promise you, Ethan said with a smile. I'm really just going to see Victor. Half an hour later, his crew burst into the room, Lily in tow. Boss, young Mr. Vance. Ethan nodded and turned to Jax. Go pay the bill. Then he looked at Isabel. Want me to carry you? Isabel looked down, her ingrained aversion kicking in. My left leg is much better. If you support me, I can walk. Ma'am, let me help you. Lily quickly stepped forward, her usual timid demeanor unchanged. Although she had once been part of the Thorne household, Arthur had always kept her in the shadows, so Isabel had never met her. But Lily knew about Isabel's aversion to being touched by men. Thank you, Isabel said. With Lily's help, she tentatively got out of bed and managed to stand, albeit unsteadily. Seeing this, Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. He clapped Benny on the shoulder. Let me borrow your phone. You take your sister-in-law home first. Benny was taken aback. Why don't you let Jax take her? I'll go with you. After hearing that his boss had been in an accident, the big man was simmering with rage and eager for revenge. No need, Ethan refused, holding out his hand for the phone. Benny reluctantly handed it over. Ethan then turned to Lily. You stay with the madam today. Take good care of her. I will, young Mr. Vance. Madam, I'll help you downstairs. Isabel looked at the men, especially the most formidable one, Finn. She pursed her lips and reminded Ethan one last time. Don't forget what you promised me. Ethan smiled. I won't. Remember to take your medicine when you get home and get some more sleep. I'll come see you as soon as I'm done. MMM. After the three of them left the room, Ethan found Victor's number and dialed it immediately. At the same time, he took the suit jacket containing the gun from the bedside table and handed it to Finn. Hello. The call connected quickly. It's me. I had some trouble last night. My phone got smashed. What happened to you? Victor sounded tense. Ethan didn't want him to know about last night. In his mind, Caleb Shaw was already a dead man. It was better not to involve Victor. He just said it was nothing and changed the subject. Why did you call me last night? Victor sighed. I had some trouble too. Last night, after meeting with some of the directors from Triumph Corporation about the acquisition, my car was ambushed on the way back to the manor. Ethan's brow furrowed. Are you okay? I'm fine. 2 of my bodyguards died. Victor paused. Right now, I'm not sure if it was the Yates family retaliating or if the real mastermind has finally shown his face. But I'm investigating the Yates family. I should have results soon. Ethan was silent for a long moment. I'm going to get some answers myself. I'll come find you later. We'll talk then. After hanging up, Ethan sat on the hospital bed, lost in thought. It seemed it wasn't so certain that Caleb Shaw was the one who tried to kill him last night. Father and son being attacked at the same time naturally made the remnants of the Yates family the primary suspects. As for the mastermind from 10 years ago, would they really bother to kill a useless playboy like him? He'd been back in the country for 2 years. If they wanted to make a move, they would have done it already. Regardless, he would know once Victor finished his investigation into the Yates family. For now, he needed to find out what Caleb Shaw was all about. He knew Ethan was the young master of the Vance family, and his infamous exploits were all over the internet. For Caleb to still dare to provoke him, he must have some serious backing. What's more, Milo still hadn't found anything on him. It was likely that Caleb's background was truly extraordinary. Just as Nero had said before, the truly powerful families never flaunt their wealth and power. The more mysterious the background, the more unfathomable they were. Acting rashly would be unwise. But Caleb knew Sienna Sterling, and it was too much of a coincidence that Caleb had started causing trouble for him right after Sienna appeared. Although he thought Isabel's analysis last night was nonsense, he should still go to the Red Tower to test the waters and figure out why Sienna Sterling was being so unusually attentive to him. That's why he had specifically told Finn to bring the red card. He had already decided to find Sienna Sterling, but he was just going for a chat. There was no need to bring a large entourage. Even Victor Vance was wary of the Red Tower. He wouldn't dare to act rashly there. When Jax returned from paying the bill, Ethan gave him the address of the kind woman from the shantytown. Take my car keys. You drive Finn's car. Buy her a lot of daily necessities and things a grade schooler would need. As for money, you decide how much. Don't be cheap. She did me a great favor. The young playboy wasn't exactly a saint, but he had his principles. Whether it was a debt of gratitude or a thirst for revenge, he always repaid it tenfold, 100-fold. After giving his instructions, Ethan changed into the clothes Lily had brought and headed straight for the Red Tower with Finn. Although the Red Tower wasn't open 24/7, it also functioned as a hotel, so the front desk and security were staffed around the clock. At the main entrance, when the guard inspected his membership card, he glanced at the unfamiliar red card, then at Ethan. He picked up his walkie-talkie and announced, "Supreme Red Card, 2 VIPs. Ethan remembered that the last time he came with Victor, the guard hadn't made a point of announcing the card's level over the radio. He wondered what the significance was. After getting the card back, the two of them entered the main gate. Halfway down the cobblestone path, 2 beautiful hostesses in Chong Sams emerged from the main hall to greet them. "Mr. Vance, welcome." Led by the hostesses, Ethan bypassed the front desk and was taken directly to an elevator, which ascended to a presidential suite on the 7th floor. It seemed the highest level of membership came with a different class of treatment. After seating them, the hostesses withdrew without a word. Just as Ethan was wondering what was next, there was a knock on the door. A young woman entered, the same one who had been with Sienna Sterling when she gave him the red card. When she saw Ethan, she seemed surprised that he was the guest. A strange, knowing smile flickered across her face. "Mr. Vance," she purred, "a pleasure to see you again." Ethan lit a cigarette and got straight to the point. "Where's your general manager? I have some business with her." The woman wore a faintly gossipy expression. "So early in the morning? Does Mr. Vance have urgent business with my manager?" Ethan grunted an affirmative, offering no explanation. "Well," the woman looked troubled. "My manager hasn't arrived yet. I'm afraid you'll have to wait." Ethan's lips curved. "Could you please give her a call? Tell her I want to discuss ink wash painting with her." "Of course," the woman nodded. She clapped her hands, and 2 more women entered from outside. They were dressed in sexy, revealing outfits, looking no older than 20. Though their faces were young and pure, they couldn't hide the air of world weariness about them. "Mr. Vance," the woman smiled. "These 2 young ladies are new to the Red Tower. They're still college students. If they meet with your approval, they can attend to you gentlemen while you bathe and relax. If not, I can find replacements for you." Finn blinked blankly, looking expressionlessly at Ethan. Ethan was at a loss. "What are you looking at me for? I didn't arrange this." He frowned at the woman. "That won't be necessary. Just bring us 2 cups of tea. They will prepare tea for you," the woman said, her smile never wavering. She paused. "They will also follow your every command. They are very obedient." "No, thanks, really," Ethan said coolly. "You can all leave. Just remember to call Sienna Sterling." The woman covered her mouth and giggled. "I forgot this is Mr. Vance's first time on the 7th floor. Allow me to explain. This is how our service works here. Everything is provided by the hostesses. If you insist on refusing them, not only will you be without any service, but they will also have their wages docked." As soon as she finished speaking, the 2 provocative women sidled up to Ethan, looking at him with piteous expressions. "Mr. Vance, please choose us, won't you? We promise we'll make you very satisfied." Their sultry, coquettish tones sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. Anyone with slightly less self-control would have lost it. Regardless of their skills, their looks and figures were first-rate. And to top it off, they were young. So young and tender you could practically squeeze water from their skin. Since it had come to this, Ethan didn't want to waste any more time. He casually agreed, once again reminding the woman to call Sienna. The woman left the room, the smile on her face immediately replaced by a sneer. The most notorious playboy in Port Sterling, and he's still pretending to be a gentleman? What a hypocrite. Your father is much more straightforward than you. Muttering to herself, she went to the elevator and ascended to the top floor. Having been drinking with an important figure late into the night, Sienna Sterling was still sleeping in her private boudoir on the top floor. She heard a faint knock on the door, sat up, and leaned against the headboard, gently massaging her temples. "Come in," she said. The woman entered, her expression strange. "Sister, guess who's here?" Sienna's throat was dry. She pointed to the water dispenser. "Oh." The woman poured a glass of water, handed it to Sienna, and smiled. "Ethan Vance. He came specifically to see you." Hearing the name, Sienna stiffened for a moment, then a smile spread across her face. She took a sip of water. "He's eager, isn't he? Coming here so early in the morning." The woman was confused. "Sister, did you know he was coming? Did you two have plans?" "Not exactly," Sienna said. "I just knew he would definitely come to demand an explanation." "Demand an explanation?" The woman grew more confused. She suddenly remembered the bandages on Ethan's forehead and neck. "Sister, he looked injured. Is it related to you?" "Injured? Is it serious?" Sienna's eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. "Not serious. Just a couple of bandages on his head," the woman said, pointing to the corresponding spots on her own head. Sienna was lost in thought for a moment, then drained her glass of water. "Did you put him on the 7th floor?" "Yes." The woman's eyes were filled with mockery. "By now, he's probably having a great time." "Sister, you should have seen him. He was trying to act all prim and proper, kept refusing the girls. Such a hypocrite. Perhaps the young master simply didn't care for the girls you arranged," Sienna said with a smile. "Don't forget, his company is full of female stars, and his wife is the #1 beauty in Port Sterling. He has high standards." "Oomph. I still don't think Isabel Thorne is as beautiful as you." Such a flatterer. Sienna's head was starting to ache. She continued to massage her temples. "Let him enjoy himself for now. I'll go see him in an hour." The woman saw the unconscious smile playing on Sienna's lips and pouted. "Sister, ever since that Ethan Vance came to the Red Tower, you've been acting like you're possessed. You smile whenever he's mentioned. Just now, when I said he was hurt, you even looked nervous. You don't actually have feelings for him, do you? What on earth happened between you two? I'm so curious." Sienna shot her a look, but didn't explain. "Go do your work. I'm going to get some more sleep. My head hurts." An hour later, Sienna had finished her makeup and changed into an exquisite cheongsam. A woman who loved to wear cheongsams was confident in her figure. Sienna's figure was beyond confidence. With a full bust, a waist that seemed impossibly slender, and long, straight legs beneath her curvaceous hips, she was a natural-born stunner. Taking the elevator to the 7th floor, Sienna walked with a slight sway of her hips, making her way unhurriedly to Ethan's suite. She knocked on the door. An hour should have been plenty of time for the playboy to have his fun. A moment later, one of the hostesses opened the door. Seeing Sienna, she quickly bowed her head. "Manager." Sienna looked at the fully dressed hostess with a puzzled expression. By all rights, shouldn't she be in a bathrobe? Just then, Ethan's voice came from inside the room. "Mahjong. Pay up." Sienna found it amusing. She stepped inside and saw Ethan sitting at a mahjong table, looking triumphant. The other hostess, seeing Sienna, also stood up and greeted her respectfully. "Manager." Sienna looked at Ethan's roguish face and shook her head with a smile. "Mr. Vance, you truly are a connoisseur of wasting beauty. I arranged 2 stunning women for you, and you make them play mahjong?" Ethan retorted cheekily, "Hey, between the 2 of them, they owe me 12 grand. You gonna cover it?" The 2 hostesses looked at each other. In all their time in this business, they had never met a client who came to win money from them. Was he crazy? "Fine, put on my tab," Sienna laughed. She glanced at the 2 hostesses and waved a hand, dismissing them. "Mr. Vance, I haven't seen you in one night, and you've already got yourself banged up?" Sienna personally picked up the teapot and poured more tea for Ethan and Finn. "I was wondering the same thing." Ethan smiled. "That's why I came to you for some answers." Finn glanced at Sienna, his hand rising to gently rub the cross hanging on his chest. Sienna sat down in the chair opposite Ethan. She looked at Finn and said with a slight reproach, "You really don't know how to play along. You use painting as an excuse, but you could at least pretend." Ethan took a deep breath. "My mind isn't at ease. I can't pretend." "Sienna, no wonder you didn't do anything just now." Ethan was speechless. Sienna smiled, then glanced at Finn without speaking. Ethan understood her meaning. He patted Finn's shoulder. "Go wait for me outside." After Finn left, Sienna stared at Ethan, her lips curling. "What do you want to ask?" "Go ahead." Ethan got straight to the point. "Why did you give me a red card? I hear it's the highest level of membership here." Sienna giggled. "Flattered. You could say that. It's nothing to make a big deal about. I just think Mr. Vance is a man of extraordinary character and refinement. You suit my tastes. A membership card is nothing to me." Ethan gave a roguish grin. "Suit your tastes? What? You want to eat me up?" Sienna's gaze roamed over Ethan's body, her eyes full of sultry charm. My, you don't know the first thing about subtlety, do you? You're so naughty. Ethan was speechless again. That's not the kind of eating he'd meant. He, a rogue himself, was actually being flustered by her advances. Sienna saw his helpless expression and giggled. Mr. Vance, they say you're a suave man of the world, but I think you're more like a clueless jock. Could it be that you've seen the error of your ways and are turning over a new leaf for your wife? Ethan pouted. I'm not in the mood for jokes, Sienna Sterling. What exactly are you after? Sienna sighed. When a woman shows interest in a man, it's usually for one of two reasons. One, for material gain, and two, of course, she's hungry for your body. Hith. Which one do you think I'm after? Ethan felt like he was in over his head. It was the first time he'd been so completely outmaneuvered by a woman's flirting. He took a sip of tea, not wanting to waste any more time on this. He changed the subject. Last night, what was your friend's problem? I don't even know him. Why was he causing trouble for me? Sienna's smile faded. She countered, why don't you tell me how you got those injuries first? Ethan thought for a moment and briefly recounted the car crash from last night. No wonder Mr. Vance is so angry. Sienna's tone was slightly acidic. So, it's because your wife was involved. Ethan stared into her eyes, his voice cool. Tell me, what does he want? I'm not his keeper. How would I know what his problem is? Sienna said, but I did ask around. After he followed you off the North Loop Expressway, you lost him. Not long after, his family called him home. So, your car crashed last night. It probably wasn't him. Ethan was silent, weighing her words. I have a favor to ask. Could you personally ask him for me how I provoked him? There's no need. The reason his family called him home was because they knew he was looking for you and didn't want things to escalate. I'm sure his father gave him an earful last night. No matter what, you're the young master of the Vance family. The Shaw family isn't going to start a feud with you for no reason. So let's just drop it. He won't bother you again. Since no real harm was done, just be the bigger person. Spend your energy finding out who really tried to kill you last night. The Shaw family. What's their story? Ethan asked suspiciously. Sienna shot him a resentful look. Mr. Vance, all things considered, this is only our third time meeting. Even if we hit it off, you can't interrogate me like a criminal. Or does the name Sienna Sterling carry no weight in your eyes? Ethan realized he had been a bit blunt. Sorry, he said softly. You have no consideration for my feelings. Honestly, the phrase struck Ethan as oddly familiar. The way she said it, her expression, her tone, it all felt familiar. He stared at her bewitching face, lost in thought. Sienna's smile was radiant. Do you like what you see? Hith. Yeah, ahem. Ethan coughed. For some reason, when Sienna turned on the charm, the feeling of familiarity faded. After that, they chatted aimlessly for another half an hour. Ethan tried to probe her, subtly and not so subtly, but got nothing. He lost interest in continuing the conversation. He took a sip of tea. Are you sure last night had nothing to do with that Shaw guy? Sienna nodded. Positive. He's really just a very, very casual acquaintance. I have no reason to lie to you. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. But time will prove it. He won't bother you again. Ethan was still skeptical. He had come to the Red Tower to test Sienna's reaction. It seemed she held no hostility towards him. But it was hard to say if it was all an act. A great philosopher once said, the prettier the woman, the more convincing the lie. There was truth in that. Regardless, since he couldn't find any cracks in her story, he might as well go find Victor first. As for whether Caleb Shaw would cause more trouble, just as Sienna had said, time would tell. He just needed to be on his guard. Sorry to bother you so early in the morning, Ethan said, getting up. I have some other things to attend to, so I'll be going. Sienna also stood, a hint of displeasure on her face. She sighed. You're leaving already? Oh, all right. After a pause, she added, Mr. Vance, let me remind you again. Don't mess with the Shaw family. It's best not to even investigate them. The business between you and Caleb is over, understand? There's no need to bring more trouble on yourself. Ethan grinned. All right, thanks for the advice. I won't go looking for trouble. With a nod, Ethan turned and walked toward the door. Sienna watched his back, a smile on her lips. She took a few steps back toward the balcony. Just as Ethan reached the entryway to change his shoes, she seemed to think of something, took a deep breath, and said, out of the blue, Hey, aren't you afraid I'll jump? Ethan's body went rigid. The expression on his face froze. He slowly turned his head to look at Sienna, who was leaning against the railing, his eyes filled with utter astonishment. After a long moment of shock, he spoke in a voice of disbelief. It's you? Zhang Yao. Sienna tilted her head, her face full of grievance. A bitter smile touched her lips. I was wondering when you'd finally recognize me. Big brother Ethan. As she spoke the words, "Big Brother Ethan," her sultry demeanor vanished, replaced by a kind of innocence. In an instant, both their minds were pulled back in time. A young boy, brought by his mother to live with his grandmother. One evening, he sat leisurely on the rooftop, a new drawing board from his grandmother in front of him, his chaotic thoughts translating into a painting. He wasn't painting the bustling city life below, nor the fiery clouds at sunset, nor the distant sails on the sea. He was painting bamboo, its leaves tossed by the wind, as chaotic as the feelings the top student from the class next door stirred in his heart. After enjoying the evening breeze for a while, the boy, at that time, not a shameless scoundrel but a quiet, refined artist, picked up half a watermelon with a spoon stuck in it and took a bite, smiling faintly at his masterpiece. Just then, the rusty iron door to the rooftop was suddenly pushed open. A girl with a ponytail, her face bruised and swollen, walked onto the rooftop. Her eyes were empty and desperate, her steps heavy as she walked to the very edge. Suddenly, she heard a rustling sound, like someone biting into a crisp watermelon. She followed the sound and saw, not far away, a handsome boy sitting there, a spoon in one hand, a paintbrush in the other, eating watermelon and watching her. The girl's eyes were red. She sniffled and said coldly, "What are you looking at?" The boy blinked, didn't respond, and continued to eat his watermelon. "Aren't you afraid I'll jump from here? Get lost, unless you want to have nightmares." "What's it to me?" the boy said coolly, scooping out a large piece of watermelon and putting it in his mouth, his eyes never leaving her. The girl, then named Zhang Yao and not Sienna Sterling, saw the indifference in the boy's eyes and gave a sad smile. She turned back to look at the sky. The clear sky, the gentle evening breeze, the picturesque sunset. All this beauty was as dark as hell in her eyes. Ethan had heard of her. The girl who lived in the same building was named Zhang Yao. Her mother had been a prostitute who died of illness 2 years ago, leaving her with her stepfather. Because her stepfather was a notorious alcoholic and gambler, and because Zhang Yao's grades were always poor, everyone in the complex treated her with contempt. But no one knew what this girl, whom they saw as nothing but bad luck and trash, had been through. No one knew the evil her beast of a stepfather had committed against her. And no one knew how his fists and feet had forced her down her mother's path. Gradually, she grew numb. But deep down, she held on to a sliver of hope because she had a kind and gentle homeroom teacher who always took care of her. He was like a beam of light shining into the abyss. He would buy her clothes, bring her food, and often offered to tutor her at his home after school. But perhaps because she felt so dirty, she always refused her teacher's kindness, though she cherished it in her heart, vowing to repay him one day. However, an hour before she walked onto that rooftop, as she was numbly earning money for her stepfather, as usual, she received a call from her light. Someone once said of Kigo Higashino's journey under the midnight sun, "There are two things in this world you cannot look at directly, the sun and the human heart." Until her homeroom teacher's fist landed on her face, Zhang Yao couldn't believe that the perverted monster in front of her was the man she had considered her light. "I was nice to you, so you would be more cooperative, and you have a nerve to play innocent with me. You little bitch. You think I don't know what you do? If you're going to sell yourself, stop acting like a fucking saint." The foul language, every word a sharp sword piercing her heart, was 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times more painful than any physical blow. The light had been an illusion. In an instant, Sienna's already broken world collapsed into dust. She walked out of the apartment, but instead of going downstairs, she moved like a zombie toward the rooftop. Staring at the horizon, she went numb. There was nothing left in this world worth holding on to. With a bitter laugh, she took a decisive step forward, only to be stopped by a loud splat behind her. Sienna squeezed her eyes shut. She'd never done a single bad thing in her life, so why had her short existence been nothing but misery? Even now, as she tried to die, she couldn't find a moment of peace. She spun around, glaring, and saw the boy still staring at her. At his feet lay a smashed half of a watermelon, its red pulp and shattered rind looking disturbingly like a bloodied, broken head. The image of what she would look like if she jumped flashed through her mind, and she instinctively took a few steps back. "A smashed head makes for an ugly ghost," Ethan said, his face utterly serious. "Who knows, you might even become a ghost boss, but you'll be hideous. I guess it doesn't matter. For a ghost, the uglier, the scarier. Could you please be a little more considerate? I'm trying to jump off a building here. Go ahead. I'm not stopping you." Ethan was unervingly calm. He paused, looking at Sienna's tear-streaked face, then picked up his drawing pencil. "Come a little closer. I'll draw a picture of you to burn later. After a jump like that, you'll be unrecognizable. After a while, you might even forget what you looked like." Sienna clenched her fists, her teeth grinding as she stared at him. You, if I die today, I'm taking you with me. Like a madwoman, Sienna charged at Ethan, tackling him to the ground. She rained down frantic, crying blows, but he easily caught her wrists. She was just a girl, and no matter how much she struggled, she couldn't break his grip. Finally, her strength gave out, and she collapsed on top of him, sobbing uncontrollably. Suddenly, Ethan's arms gently wrapped around her. His lips moved next to her ear, his voice still cool and dispassionate. What kind of strength is there in taking it out on yourself? If you have any guts, you'll give it right back to them. Sienna fell, strangely silent. The evening wind blew softly, and her tears fell onto Ethan's face like melting ice. The boy had no idea of the inhuman cruelty the girl in his arms had endured. He only saw her as a pitiful soul like himself. No, someone even more tragic. As she came to her senses, the girl couldn't understand how this boy who had just saved her could be so composed, or why his tone held a note of shared suffering. But she could feel it. He was terrifyingly precocious, lacking any of the naivety of his peers. What other 15 or 16-year-old would react this way to someone about to jump? Thank you. Sienna calmed down and sat up. Ethan said nothing. He packed up his drawing board, picked up the iron spoon he'd used on the watermelon, and started to head home. Sienna called out from behind him, "What's your name?" Without turning back, Ethan walked on. Ethan Vance. Sienna wiped the tears from her face and hurried after him, her head down. "My name is Sienna Jean." Hearing no reply, she peeked up and happened to see the bamboo drawing on his board. Summoning her courage, she asked, "That, your drawing. Can I have it?" Ethan stopped. After a moment's thought, he took the drawing off the board and handed it to her. Sienna didn't follow him any further. She held the drawing with both hands and watched his back disappear through the iron gate of the building. "Ethan Vance," she whispered. "It's a nice name." After that day, they never interacted again. But Ethan noticed that Sienna would always manufacture a chance encounter after his evening classes. She wouldn't say anything, just smile, nod, and then flee as if embarrassed. This continued until one night a month later. In another one of their encounters, Sienna's face was bruised and swollen, just like it had been on the rooftop. A pang of concern hit Ethan. "Did your dad get drunk and hit you again?" Sienna smiled bitterly and nodded. "I'm used to it." Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. In that moment, he pitied this poor girl, but there was nothing he could do. Just as he was about to turn and leave, Sienna suddenly called out, "Big brother Ethan." Ethan stopped, looking back at her. "Yeah." He hesitated. "Do you need me to call the police?" Sienna shook her head, her lips pressed together in silence, as she just looked at him and smiled. They held each other's gaze for a moment before Ethan looked away. "I'm going home," he said, turning toward his apartment building. He didn't know that this time, Sienna didn't run away in embarrassment. She watched his back until he was gone, a farewell in her eyes and a smile on her face that was sweeter than any he had ever seen. To bloom in the abyss, to accept the darkness, that too is a kind of liberation. That night, an accidental gas explosion occurred in Sienna's home. The demon who lived for alcohol and gambling was sent to hell. Sienna herself only suffered minor injuries. After one night in the hospital, she dropped out of school. No one knew where she went. Later, on New Year's Eve, Sienna's former homeroom teacher was also declared missing by the police. To this day, he has never been found, living or dead. Back in the present, Ethan stared at Sienna, sterling in disbelief. After a long pause, he finally spoke. Why is your name Sienna Sterling?" Sienna swayed her hips as she walked toward him, her tone light and breezy. "There was an explosion at my house that year. I was adopted later, so I took my adoptive father's last name and changed my first." Ethan wanted to ask how she became the general manager of the Red Tower, but the question felt idiotic. A stunner like Sienna, even a fool could guess how she had acquired everything she now possessed. "Have I changed that much? It took you so long to recognize me, honestly." Sienna reached him and pouted playfully. Ethan smirked, his eyes sweeping over her shapely rear. "Well, you've definitely grown up." Sienna laughed. "Hey, why are you acting like such a punk now? Give me my big brother Ethan back." She opened her arms. "A hug." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Let's not. I'm a married man now. My wife keeps me on a tight leash." "Stingy." Sienna didn't press the issue, folding her arms naturally. "Lunch together?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I have something to do." "Hey, since we're old friends, why don't you tell me what's really going on with the Shaw family?" "Stop," Sienna said, rolling her eyes. "I said what I was going to say, and I don't want to repeat myself. I know you were suspicious of me just now. Did you think I was in cahoots with Caleb Shaw, plotting against you?" Ethan feigned sincerity. The thought never crossed my mind. Don't lie to a liar. Ethan gave a sheepish grin. All right, I'll come find you another day. I've got to run. Sienna didn't stop him. Fine, but add me on WhatsApp first? No matter how strict your wife is, adding a contact can't be that big a deal, right? Ethan smiled. No, it's not. But I lost my phone. Next time. I already added you last night. Remember to accept the request. Ethan paused. Okay, I'm leaving now. I'll see you out. She personally escorted Ethan downstairs, watching with a radiant smile as his car drove away. Her eyes lingered long after he was gone. In truth, she had been keeping tabs on her former savior ever since he returned to the country. But her own circumstances made it impossible to reveal herself, so she had forced herself to stay away. When a flower has yet to bloom, there's no need to attract the wind. On the way to Phoenix Crest Manor, Ethan bought a new phone and got a replacement SIM card. Once the new card was activated, he opened WhatsApp and saw it. A friend request from Sienna Sterling sent around 3 in the morning. He hesitated for a moment before tapping accept. He was still reeling from the shock of meeting her under these circumstances. The awkward, horse-tailed girl who had been subjected to endless ridicule in her stepfather's beatings, the ugly duckling, had transformed into an unattainable swan with a mysterious background. He couldn't imagine what she had suffered or what she had paid to get here. Ethan sighed with a mix of emotions, but he didn't look down on her in the slightest. In fact, he was happy for her. Never judge a person's choices until you've walked in their shoes. He understood that principle all too well. Now that he knew who Sienna was, her previous gestures of goodwill made more sense. And today, she had steadfastly refused to discuss the Shaw family. At first, Ethan had suspected she was working with Caleb, but now it seemed more likely she was trying to protect him from unnecessary trouble. Still, he remained skeptical. People change. You can never be too careful. Finn, who was driving, glanced over at him and asked abruptly, "Do we kill her?" Ethan looked up. "Kill who?" "That woman. She's obviously trouble. And that Caleb Shaw you mentioned. Last night was definitely their doing." Ethan smiled faintly. "We can't be sure yet. Let's hold off for now. A couple of stabs would make us sure," Finn said coolly. "Why don't I just take care of Caleb tonight? This Shaw family might be a problem," Ethan said, his voice lowering. "Let's wait until we know more." Finn replied, "The gear Jax ordered is arriving tonight." Ethan knew what he meant and sighed. "Finn, don't be so quick to kill. If Caleb wasn't behind last night's attack, we don't need to stir up trouble with his family." Finn fell silent. After a moment, Ethan asked unexpectedly, "How are things going with that therapist?" Finn's lips tightened. "Crazy woman. I told her who I am, and she wasn't even scared. Talks too much. Never stops laughing. It's annoying." Ethan looked out the window and murmured with a smile, "That's good." When they arrived at Phoenix Crest Manor, Ethan went to find Victor while Finn waited in the car. The moment they met, Victor's brow furrowed at the sight of the cuts on his son's face and neck. "This is what you call a small matter? What kind of small matter leaves you injured?" Ethan ignored the question. "Did you find out anything?" Victor's expression grew heavy. It wasn't the Yates family. Ethan's eyes lit up. "So, the move I made using Gene Marshall worked?" "Yes. They failed this time, but they'll probably make another move soon." "You be careful. Take more bodyguards with you when you go out, and try to get one of them alive." Victor sighed. "You be careful, too. For us to be attacked at the same time, the people who came after you are definitely the same ones." He paused, then said suddenly, "That Caleb Shaw. Don't you touch him." Ethan was suspicious. "You know about that?" Victor smiled. "Not long after we spoke this morning, Caleb's father called me. He told me what happened between you two last night. The gist of it is, he doesn't want any trouble with us. He said he'll handle his son and that Caleb won't bother you again." Since Victor already knew, Ethan didn't hide anything. "What's the deal with the Shaw family, anyway? I'm really curious." Victor gave a strange smile. "What Shaw family? There's no Shaw family in Port Sterling. Have you ever heard of them?" "Heh, that little bastard doesn't even use his real name. Calling himself a Shaw is just a smokescreen." "What?" Ethan was genuinely surprised. "This Caleb Shaw is a natural-born monster. At 14, he was driving without a license. Not only did he hit someone, he beat the person half to death. At 17, he and some of his degenerate friends gang-raped a female classmate. TSK. He's committed so many sins, God will get him sooner or later." "I'm afraid God has bad eyes," Ethan said coldly. "It has nothing to do with us," Victor said. "You can probably guess that any family the Van Cess wouldn't dare to provoke easily must have connections to the government. Don't get curious and start digging. The point is, Caleb's father called him off halfway through chasing you last night. He had nothing to do with what happened to you later. There's no need to go after him." It seems Sienna hadn't been lying. Last night's attack really had nothing to do with Caleb Shaw. For now, Ethan had no interest in the strange Shaw family or why Caleb had provoked him. But his expression suddenly turned grave. In fact, he had been hoping it was Caleb and not the mastermind from 10 years ago. Victor saw through him and sighed. Son, I know what you're thinking. Are you worried you'll drag Isabel into this? Ethan was silent. Victor continued. What are you going to do? Divorce her? Heh, don't be naive. Do you think she'll be better off if she leaves you now? Son, 10 years ago, if I had been by your mother's side, she wouldn't have died. You can't let yourself live with that kind of regret. Ethan's mind was in turmoil. If these people were already willing to kill him, a supposed useless playboy, then Isabel would undoubtedly be pulled into unknown danger. If they divorced, he could easily deal with anyone who threatened her from the shadows. But if she stayed by his side, they were in the dark while he was in the light. And he knew firsthand how ruthless their methods were. They wouldn't be easy to handle. After a long silence, Ethan lit a cigarette, the ember glowing and fading in the dim light. When he finished it, it seemed he had made a decision. His eyes grew resolute. He chatted briefly with Victor, then got up to leave. At the same time, in the Shaw family mansion, Caleb was sound asleep when his bedroom door was thrown open. A man slightly older than him stormed to the bedside, a baseball bat in hand. Without a word, he ripped the covers off and swung. Get up, you animal. What time is it? Still sleeping? The man showed no mercy, hitting Caleb again and again. Caleb woke with a jolt. Seeing it was his brother, he immediately curled into a ball, covering his head. It was a practice move. He had clearly been beaten like this before. All you do is cause trouble. You're 27, not 17. Get up, the man yelled. His eyes fell on the white powder on the nightstand, and his rage intensified. He cracked the bat across Caleb's neck. Still using? Didn't you say you quit? Huh, you animal. I wish I could just kill you right now. At the sound of the commotion, Caleb's mother rushed in. She shoved her older son. Felix, what are you doing? He's your brother. If he wasn't my brother, I would have killed him already. Their mother shielded Caleb with her body, glaring at her older son. Get out. You're still coddling him? Huh. He's a monster today because of you. Felix raised the bat and pointed it at Caleb. I'm warning you. That Vance kid is not to be trifled with. Don't provoke him again. The federal task force is still in Port Sterling. You'd better behave, or you'll drag this whole family down with you. Get out, their mother screamed, pushing and shoving Felix out of the bedroom. She returned to Caleb's side, anxiously checking him for injuries. Seeing they weren't too severe, she breathed a sigh of relief. She then slipped a bank card into his hand. Caleb, sweetie, don't be upset. Go have some fun with your friends. If it's not enough, call me. Caleb took the card and licked a drop of blood from the corner of his lip, a sinister smile spreading across his face. After his mother left, Caleb stretched lazily and called Sienna Sterling. Sienna, darling, you're the one who tipped off my dad last night, weren't you? Sienna's voice was dismissive. Why don't you go ask your father? Heh, afraid I'd bully your little sweetheart. Sienna took a breath. Caleb, don't be so childish. Just listen to your father. If there's a next time, don't blame me for turning on you. I just don't get it. Caleb raged. What's so great about him? What does he have that I don't? Sienna was merciless. Your possessiveness and your need for control are pathological. Caleb, I'm telling you one more time. There is nothing between me and Ethan Vance, and I will never like him. But no matter what, I will most certainly never like you. You make me sick. She hung up. Caleb's eyes turned venomous. He clenched his fists, his teeth grinding. Ethan Vance, if I don't destroy you, I'll take your damn name. To be threatened by the woman he'd loved for years, berated by his father, and beaten by his own brother. Even if he had brought it on himself, it was a bitterness he couldn't swallow. After Ethan got home, he briefed Finn and Benny on the plan to pick up the shipment of gear that night, then headed to Isabel's house. Lily, wearing an apron, answered the door. Mr. Ethan, how are your injuries? I'm fine. Ethan smiled. Are you cooking? Yes. Lily stepped aside to let him in. I'm making chicken soup to help you and Mrs. Vance recover. You're too kind, Ethan said, his gaze falling on Isabel, who was on the sofa. Isabel still looked pale. She was going through company emails on her laptop. Seeing Ethan, she visibly relaxed. You're back. Yeah. Did you miss me? Ethan walked toward her with a wicked grin. Isabel pursed her lips. Did you call the police? Ethan shook his head. Victor said he'd handle it. Good. Isabel went back to editing the email she'd been writing. Ethan sat beside her, glancing at her pale face and then down at her swollen ankle. Let me carry you to the bedroom, he asked softly. Isabel turned to look at him, her expression strange. I won't do anything. Ethan said. I just thought you should get some proper rest. Isabel shot him a look. My boss is a slacker who's left me with a mountain of work. Your boss is a real bastard. Ethan laughed, then said out of nowhere, Izzy, I didn't brush my teeth this morning. Isabel looked confused. Ethan licked his lips. Still pretty sweet. You. The memory of him tricking her into a kiss last night flooded her mind. Shameless. Disgusting, she snapped. She had no idea her damn husband was referring to more than just that one kiss. It was your first kiss, after all, Ethan said. How could I bear to brush it away? Don't talk to me. Ethan chuckled for a moment, then suddenly closed the laptop on the coffee table. Ms. Thorne, he said with mock seriousness. As of now, you are on mandatory bed rest. Ethan Vance. Isabel fumed. What are you doing? The marketing department is waiting for my approval. Let them wait. Will the world stop turning without you? You get some rest. I'll go to the office first thing tomorrow and work diligently. Isabel stared at him, fuming. Did the sun rise in the west today? I'm just worried about you. Ethan said nonchalantly. You're all talk. You think you're capable of holding down a real job? I have excellent stamina, Ethan said with a straight face. Isabel was speechless again. Don't you believe me, he continued. When I get serious about work, I'm the kind of guy who doesn't even come home for days. If you don't see me, don't miss me too much. Isabel snorted. I'll be waiting to see that. Let's see how many days you last. It's a deal. And if I do a good job, can I get a kiss or something? Get lost. Look at you. Such a beautiful woman, but you've got a fuse like a firecracker. Then maybe you should stop trying to light it. After another round of bickering, Ethan's expression grew serious. He asked suddenly, Izzy, have you ever regretted marrying me? Isabel froze, her brow furrowed. Why are you asking that? I just want to know. Isabel looked away. What's there to regret? It's all fake anyway, fake. Ethan raised an eyebrow. If I don't agree to a divorce in 3 years, not even God himself could change the fact that we're real. You don't actually think you'll be able to divorce me, do you? Ha, wishful thinking. Isabel looked at his I've got you cornered expression and said coolly, you'll be the one to regret it. Ethan took her hand. I won't, he said earnestly, not in this lifetime. Isabel looked down at their joined hands. After 5 long seconds, she uncomfortably pulled away. Liar. You're just a big liar. Then I'll just have to lie to you for a lifetime. A blush crept up Isabel's cheeks. She quickly changed the subject. I need to reply to the marketing department. It's urgent. Oh, okay. Ethan nodded, a triumphant smile playing on his lips at those 2 extra seconds of contact. He strolled into the kitchen. As soon as the door closed, Ethan leaned close to Lily. Kid, he said in a low voice, I'll take care of Isabel this afternoon. You and Benny go back to Emerald Lake Estates and pack some of my clothes. Remember to bring the gun. From today on, you'll stay here. Benny will stay at my place. You two need to protect Mrs. Vance at all costs. For the time being, I'll be staying at the villa. I won't be coming back here. Understand, Mr. Ethan. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the office on time with Finn and Jax. The employees, who hadn't seen their boss in ages, all greeted him as he walked by, though many whispered amongst themselves. Did Mr. Vance remember he owns this company? Did you notice Mrs. Vance isn't here? Are they having problems? Did she finally quit? Who's the guy with the cross on his chest? He's so handsome. Is he a new colleague? Oh my God, I need to touch up my makeup. After settling Finn in his own office, Ethan went to Isabel's. Inside the CEO's office, when he had just finished wiping down the desk and was making Isabel's coffee when Ethan walked in. And Mr. Vance? When he was startled, Ethan walked straight to the desk and glanced at her. Ms. Thorne isn't coming in today. Make me a cup of tea. I can't stand coffee. Oh, okay, Wendy replied, setting the coffee mug aside to make tea. She muttered to herself, didn't he live abroad for 8 years? How can he not stand coffee? After making the tea, Wendy brought it to the desk. She saw Ethan bent over, rummaging through the cabinets, try to pull open the drawers. They were all locked. Mr. Vance, those drawers have Ms. Thorne's personal belongings in them, she reminded him. She locks them every day. Ethan looked slightly embarrassed. Do you know where the key is? Wendy looked troubled. I don't know. The young woman was already suspicious. Why was the workaholic Isabel absent while the lazy, good-for-nothing Ethan was here? Had they fought? Now he was not only squatting in her office, but also trying to go through her private things. He was clearly up to no good. As Isabel's loyal assistant, she wouldn't betray her boss. Ethan gave her a sly smile, staring into her eyes. If I pry them open, are you going to tell Ms. Thorne? I. Wendy's eyes darted around. Will I, or won't I? Mr. Vance, you're confusing me. Ethan chuckled. All right. You can go. Tell all the department heads to come to me if they need anything. Ms. Thorne is on leave for a while. No one is to disturb her. Otherwise, they'll get spanked. When he swallowed hard and nodded. Okay. She turned and hurried out of the office. The moment she was outside, she sent a text to Isabel. Emergency, Ms. Thorne. Mr. Vance is trying to pry open your drawers. You have to stop him. A minute later, Ethan received a text from his wife. The key is on the bookshelf. Don't damage company property. Ethan was pleased. He replied, not going to ask what I'm looking for. Isabel. Unlike you, I don't have so many secrets. Another message followed. If you're at work, act like it. Behave like a boss. Don't be so unprofessional. Ethan. Such a strict wife. When no reply came, Ethan found the key and opened all the drawers. He rummaged through them for a while, but found only confidential company documents and various official seals. The so-called personal belongings consisted of a single makeup kit. He pouted, having lost interest, and locked the drawers again. Soon, the department heads began to arrive one by one to resolve work issues. The CEO's job wasn't as constantly busy as a lower-level employee's. It was about setting direction and making decisions. If there were no major projects, it was a leisurely job of signing papers. In the afternoon, while Ethan was bored out of his mind, Mr. Albright, the head of the legal department, knocked and entered. Mr. Vance, the Kiko Z case is scheduled for trial the day after tomorrow. Will you need to attend? You can represent me. I don't have time to deal with that garbage, Ethan said with a frown. Albright nodded, unsurprised. He took out a prepared power of attorney form and handed it to Ethan. Mr. Vance, you'll need to sign this. He paused, then added that Kiko Z has been playing the victim online again. She's saying she was used and she's been making sarcastic, veiled jabs at you. The gist is that you've always been. Ethan signed the form and handed it back. Always been a two-faced, sex-addicted predator? Heh, then just save the evidence. For every video she posts, you file another lawsuit. We'll see who gives up first. Albright hesitated. Mr. Vance, I discussed this with a friend at the courthouse last night. We can probably only sue for about $60,000 in damages at most. $60,000? Ethan's voice grew sharp. What the hell am I paying you for? My reputation was nearly destroyed. Forget the influencer hub. Elysian Media was almost ruined. If she had succeeded, have you calculated how much I would have lost? $60,000? I spent more than that on a night out. Forget me. Even that influencer wouldn't consider $60,000 real money. Albright trembled. The amount of damages is based on actual losses. We didn't suffer any significant actual losses. We can only sue for damages to your reputation and the company's. Ethan laughed a harsh, angry sound. Fair. That's so damn fair. A slap on the wrist for someone like her. You think she'll change? I'll tell you, she'll just get worse. Haven't you ever heard that a leopard can't change its spots? If I hadn't been lucky, I'd be buried under an avalanche of public scorn by now. Elysian would probably be filing for bankruptcy. Where we get the chance to prove my innocence. $60,000. That's pathetic. In today's online climate, followers rush to join the chaos. Listeners refuse to distinguish right from wrong. Opportunists sat back and reaped the rewards, while those trying to clarify the truth were thrown into an abyss. The victim was left with no one to turn to. It was a carnival of ghouls, and some people blended right in, smiling wider than any demon. Seeing his boss's fury, Albright shivered. Mr. Vance, damages are one thing. I've also filed criminal charges. That case might take longer, but I'm confident we can get her sent to prison. Defamation with severe consequences carries a sentence of up to 3 years. She can't escape it. Up to 3 years. So it could also be 1 year, or even a few months. And this lawsuit of yours will take 1.5 years to resolve? What a joke. Forget it. You stay out of this. What? Albright was confused. Ethan thought for a moment. Just go through the normal legal channels with them. I won't be involved. Okay. I'll go now, Mr. Vance. Albright backed out of the office, a sudden chill running down his spine. He had been involved in the process of clearing Ethan's name before. It wasn't hard to feel that his Playboy boss had a very dark side. After the lawyer left, Ethan searched for Kiko Z on his phone. While her popularity had waned, her recent videos still had nearly 1 million views each. He clicked on them one by one. The influencer's acting skills were impeccable. She portrayed herself as a naive, innocent girl, transforming from perpetrator to victim. The most infuriating part was a video where she specifically mentioned the truth will out, implying her story wasn't necessarily false. She just didn't dare to speak. In other words, she was insinuating that Ethan's background was too powerful, and and she could only suffer in silence. A legion of idiotic simps were rallying to her cause, crying about the dark side of society. Some were even suggesting they crowdfund her legal fees. Ethan was genuinely enraged. In his world, when you did something wrong, you paid the price. To remain so unrepentant, to play the victim online while making snide remarks. This wasn't just shameless, it was suicidal. This playboy had always considered himself a man destined for hell. He had given her one chance. He wouldn't give a second. Some people just need to be taught a lesson by someone worse than them. Ethan sighed, took a screenshot, and sent it to Finn. Take Jax. Send her on a boat trip. A few moments later, Ethan called Wendy in. What's the situation at the influencer hub? Wendy, who was naturally timid, was fine around Isabel, but became very stiff in front of Ethan. She stood ramrod straight. After the last incident, Ms. Thorne merged the hub into the company. It's now overseen by the admin, PR, and legal departments. Mr. Henderson from admin is serving as the interim head. It's back on track now, and operations are going well. They've already secured several live streaming sales partnerships. Ethan considered this. Get Mr. Henderson in here. A few minutes later, the head of administration arrived. Mr. Vance, you were looking for me. Ethan put on his jacket. Let's go. We're visiting the hub. On the way to the influencer hub, Mr. Henderson chattered on, reporting his achievements. During this time, through the joint efforts and drastic reforms of our 3 departments, we've removed influencers with bad records and implemented daily training. The hub has been completely revitalized. A few of the more clever influencers with large fan bases have already earned a lot of money for the company. Ethan didn't immediately respond to his self-praise. When they arrived, he saw that everyone was working in an orderly fashion, the atmosphere thick with proactive energy. Only then did he offer some praise. Not bad. You've done a good job. You've all worked hard. Mr. Henderson smiled obsequiously, insisting it was no trouble, and continued to lead Ethan on the tour. When accompanying a leader on an inspection, you naturally show them the best. After introducing a few run-of-the-mill influencers, Henderson led Ethan to the live streaming room of a female influencer with 9 million followers. Since she was live, Ethan didn't go in, just stood at the door watching quietly. The woman in the room spotted her boss at the door and began to shout with even more fervor. This phone, original price, $999. Today, I'm slashing the price for you all. Just $188. The 2 assistants beside her feigned panic, trying to stop her. You can't. We'll lose a ton of money at that price. The influencer yelled. This is to thank my family for their support. I'm giving back to you. Stop talking nonsense. I've got plenty of money. Post the link. The assistants, unable to dissuade her, tearfully posted the link. Ethan stifled a laugh and asked Henderson in a low voice, This is so over the top. Does it actually sell? Only an idiot would believe this. Your training doesn't seem to be working, huh? Mr. Vance, you don't watch these streams often, do you? Henderson smiled mysteriously. This very influencer, she was selling the same phone this morning. In less than an hour, she sold 40,000 units. What? Ethan was genuinely stunned. Are your numbers fake? A $1,000 item sold for $188, and 40,000 suckers lined up to grab that deal. Henderson was smug. It's not fake at all, Mr. Vance. The phone is actually only worth about $150. But with all the hype in a live stream, we can make a ridiculous profit in under half an hour. The company gets half of that. Honestly, before this, I had no idea influencers could make so much money. No wonder even famous old actors are willing to humiliate themselves to do live streams. TSK, it's mind-boggling. Ethan's face immediately darkened. Damn, this is easier than robbing people. He had started the Influencer Hub project out of curiosity. He had wandered through so many countries, and none had an influencer culture as booming as this one. Now looking at it, what the hell kind of culture was this? What booming industry? This was lawless, blatant fraud. Seeing his boss's expression sour, Henderson's smile vanished. He asked cautiously, Mr. Vance, do you have some concerns? Ethan's voice was heavy. Livestream sales. Is this the standard model? Henderson pointed to another live stream selling cosmetics. Yes. For example, in that room, the lipstick they're selling now is priced at $29. A while ago, it was $19. It's the same trick as the phone. When we sign contracts with the merchants, we require them to raise their official list price, making sure it's always higher than ours. To put it bluntly, we sign 2 different contracts. That way, consumers only see our price as the real deal, which stimulates sales. It's a win-win for us and the merchant. Isn't that just naked fraud? What about the retailers who invested in brick-and-mortar stores? Aren't you driving them to ruin? Ethan's voice grew colder. Well, Henderson was at a loss for words. A businessman should just focus on making money. Why the sudden moral outrage? Look at Ms. Thorne. She knew she didn't understand influencer operations, so she left it all to me and just looked at the weekly profit and loss reports. She never meddled like this. He probably didn't know that the young master in front of him, despite being the company's owner, was not, in fact, a skilled businessman. Ethan was furious. You're sucking the blood of consumers in every way imaginable and making them thank you for it, calling them your family and your babies. Is this how you swindle your own parents? Even bandits have more honor than you. Mr. Henderson shivered violently. Mr. Vance, this is just how the live streaming industry works. A while back, some big influencer was selling sugar water as bird's nest soup and made tens of millions. At the end of the day, some consumers are just born suckers. They don't have a brain in their heads. People believe a $1,000 phone is being sold for $188. How can you reason with that? But they just believe it. If we don't fleece them, someone else will. Worry about yourself first. Ethan snapped. You're the head of administration. Don't you know Elysian's brand is built on patriotism? Can you learn from others and do some streams that help local farmers or promote domestic products? Henderson looked troubled. Mr. Vance, there's another unwritten rule in this industry. As soon as you promote a domestic product, especially food, it's easy for it to get labeled as cancer-causing. The profit margins are already low, and you can't move much volume. Do you think these influencers who are used to making big money will be willing to do that? Ethan had heard about this before. Rumors like MSG causes cancer, while maliciously spread by certain people, were ultimately rooted in the very real and significant problems with food safety in society, which had led to a loss of public trust. You couldn't even trust baby formula. A million curses are omitted here. Very, very dirty words. Difficult is difficult, but someone has to do it, Ethan said. I started the hub, but it was never about making money, and certainly not about making this kind of soulless money. It's clear you're capable. Help Elysian build its reputation. Don't ruin our brand for short-term gains. Think long-term. Look at all those influencers. Which one of them has lasted? Yes, my vision was too narrow, Henderson admitted, while also flattering him. Mr. Vance, you're so forward-thinking, so visionary, you're truly. Enough, Ethan cut him off impatiently. And one more thing. When you're paying the influencers, pay their taxes for them directly. Don't let one bad apple spoil the bunch. Having lived abroad for 8 years, Ethan was very diligent about paying taxes. No one could imagine the hellish experience of an arms dealer being relentlessly pursued by the IRS. He left the hub simmering with anger. The feeling lasted until the end of the workday. Ethan got into Jax's royal blue GTR and drove to the auto shop Benny had contacted earlier. His own car had been totaled, and he needed a new one fast. When it came to cars, Ethan had high standards. He detailed his modification request to the shop owner and reviewed the budget. He signed the papers and paid the deposit without batting an eye. Around 9 that night, Finn and Jax finished their work and met Ethan at the shop. Boss, it's clean, Jax said in a low voice. Isn't the company suing her? Perfect. I made it look like she fled to escape justice. When Finn, the professional, handled things, Ethan didn't even bother to ask for details. Let's go. Are we heading back to Emerald Lake Estates? Jax asked. Ethan smiled faintly. No, we're going for a ride. A little parade through the city. Since the masterminds from 10 years ago had decided to target him, he might as well play the part of the bait himself. You two follow me. Not too close, not too far. Keep your guns loaded and be ready for anything. The three of them set off. Afraid his two brothers wouldn't keep up, Ethan drove at a leisurely pace, wandering aimlessly. Port Sterling wasn't huge, but it wasn't small either. He drove past South Cove Pier and saw Leo Bishop's crew of big boys shouting and posturing on the beach, seemingly in a tense standoff with another group. The arrival of a patrol car sent them scattering in a comical panic. He passed by Kevin Chen's roadside grill and saw Tina and Marcus Chun bustling about. Business had picked up considerably. If only Kevin were still alive, Tina wouldn't be left all alone. By chance, he drove past the psychiatric hospital. Ethan pulled over, staring at the red sign on the roof. His eyes gradually dimmed. He habitually reached for his pack of cigarettes and placed one between his lips. The playboy who had always been merciless and ruthless toward his enemies had, in fact, never harbored any hatred for his former mother-in-law. The woman was sharp-tongued, materialistic, and cruel. But putting himself in her shoes, if his own daughter became a big star, what mother would agree to let her marry a useless Uber driver? Love and reality have always been parallel lines. To mix reality into love is a fantasy. Romeo and Juliet was just a story. Ethan understood. He understood everything. It was just that at the time, he couldn't reveal his identity. Behind his insincere words, he couldn't bear to let Chloe go. Back then, he had hoped to find his enemies in a matter of days, get his revenge, and live a good life with her. No one knew the depth of his pain when he heard the news of her death. Life is so unpredictable. If he had known this would be the outcome, he never would have sought her out after returning to the country. He finished a cigarette, took a deep breath, and turned the car toward the bustling downtown area. After searching for a while, he finally found a flower shop that was still open. As he walked in, Finn, watching from behind, was puzzled. Is he going to pick up a girl tonight? Jax glanced over, recalling that Ethan had stopped outside the psychiatric hospital. He's probably going to see an old friend, he murmured. A few moments later, Ethan walked out of the shop with a large bouquet of white roses. He got in his car and drove straight to Hillcrest Cemetery. The old gatekeeper was in his little shack, sipping some cheap liquor. He had just popped 2 peanuts into his mouth when he saw a shadowy figure approaching, holding a bouquet. The old man glanced at the time. It was past 11. In all his years working here, he had never seen anyone come to pay their respects at this hour. What was wrong with people? Hey, what are you doing here in the middle of the night? Go home. Ethan's face was expressionless. Open the gate. Old people are often superstitious. The gatekeeper glared. We have rules. No visitors at night. You young people, aren't you afraid of attracting some unclean spirits? Go on, get out of here, and don't give me some sob story. I'm not breaking the rules. This is for your own good. You don't have to believe in these things, but you have to show some respect. Is there anything in this world dirtier than people? Ethan didn't waste words. He pulled a few $100 bills from his pocket and tossed them through the window of the shack. The old man stared, dumbfounded. He looked down at the cash on his table, then, without hesitation, took a ring of keys from the wall, walked out, and unlocked the iron gate. Watch your steps, sir. It's dark, and the path is rough. I have a blessed amulet here, if you'd like to take it. Ethan's voice was cool. Not necessary. The spirits others feared were the very person he longed to see again. The moonlight was hazy, and the mountain wind made the branches tremble like grasping ghouls. Ethan placed the white roses in front of Chloe Miller's grave and knelt on one knee. He slowly reached out a hand toward the cold headstone, but just as he was about to touch it, his hand froze in midair. After a moment, he pulled it back. He looked at the black and white photo on the stone, at her familiar smile. It felt like only yesterday. He thought back to those dark, inhuman days on the cargo ship, the cold scalpel slicing into his back, carving out piece after piece of flesh. His body and mind had been tormented to the brink of despair. Beyond the all-consuming hatred, it was this smiling face that had kept him struggling, that had given him the will to live. Chloe would never know the state of mind Ethan was in when he came to see her 2 years ago. It was like climbing out of an abyss, step by step, chasing a light, until he finally found the source he had longed for. He knew her heart was full of someone else, with no room left for him. But it didn't matter. Time would fade everything. It would also prove everything. If Ryan Asher was Chloe's North Star, then she was his. There was no logic to love. Ethan knew Chloe was a romantic, and he understood her obsession. Even when Ryan returned and Chloe left him without a second thought, he never blamed her. He was angry at the time, but only because she had missed her last chance to see her grandma. Like the mountain watching the river flows on, but the mountain remains. The one you love can go as far as they wish. You just keep on loving. The light he had stumbled upon in the darkness had to be returned to the sky once the sun rose. In the end, it was he who had been torturing himself all along. Since he couldn't have her, he should have let her pursue her own happiness. His tolerance for the Asher family was that not to give her a good home to return to. His repeated refusal to grant her a contract release was that not to keep her at the company, to prevent her from easily throwing away her career. It was just that this anonymous kindness was hard for her to understand in such a short time. And time had not given her the chance. Ethan stood up and lit a cigarette, taking a deep drag. Perhaps Chloe would be a scar on his heart that would never fade. In the dead silence of the cemetery, he lit one cigarette after another, the embers glowing and fading in the darkness. He never said a word. He remembered the last time he saw her, how she had wanted to hug him goodbye, and how he had coldly refused. His heart filled with regret. If the worlds of the living and the dead could truly connect, he would gently hug her and say a proper goodbye. Not far away, Finn leaned against a tree trunk. It's been over half an hour, he said quietly. He seems sad. He was like this when the other brothers died. Jax, standing beside him, pursed his lips. She was his ex-wife, after all. What do you bet will he cry? Finn thought of his own late wife. I didn't cry then, he said seriously. It's not because I'm incapable of tears. Jax rolled his eyes. He had a sudden idea and created a new group chat with all the brothers except Ethan, including Lily. He snapped a picture of Ethan and sent it to the group. Jax, the boss is at his ex-wife's grave. I bet 10 forehead flicks he cries. Benny, you're a real piece of work. I bet 10 punches he won't. The boss only loves the new boss now. It's chemistry. Milo, I'm with Jax. The boss is sentimental. He loved her that much, he'll definitely cry. Finn, I'll bet 2 slashes of my knife he won't cry. Milo, kick Finn out. We're not playing for stakes that high. Lily. Benny. Lily, you can bet whatever you want. If you lose, I'll take the punishment for you. 10 minutes later, Ethan finished his last cigarette. He crushed the empty pack in his hand, kicked the 7 or 8 cigarette butts aside, and bowed deeply to Chloe's grave before heading down the mountain. At the gatehouse, the old man came out to greet him eagerly. Heading back, Ethan didn't want to bother with him, but after he walked through the gate, a mischievous idea struck him. He turned back to the old man, who was about to lock the gate, and said with a sinister smile, Old man, you should go spend that money I gave you while you still can. Once the sun comes up, it'll turn into hell money. You won't be able to spend it then. The pale moonlight illuminated his wicked, devilish face. The slightly drunk old man's eyes went wide, and a chill ran down his spine. Ethan couldn't help but chuckle. When he got to the parking lot, Jax and Finn blocked his path under a streetlight. What? Ethan asked, puzzled. The two of them carefully studied his face. Jax sighed, hung his head, and walked back to their truck. Finn blinked, his lips pursed slightly. Are you two possessed? Ethan asked. Finn didn't answer, just got into the truck and stared at Jax. What do you want it? Jax swallowed hard. We weren't playing with you. Finn thought for a moment, then grabbed the back of Jax's neck and slammed his head against the steering wheel. With his other hand, he began to mercilessly flick his forehead. Fuck, Finn, that's enough. You sick bastard. A bewildered Ethan shook his head and muttered, Weirdos. He figured the two of them had made another one of their pointless bets. The guys used to do this all the time out of boredom in Mexico. He didn't bother with them, just got in his car and drove out of the parking lot. Now, only the imposing Ford Raptor remained, the truck shaking rhythmically. The faint sound of an American shouting, fuck, could be heard. Any unknowing passerby would surely get the wrong idea. A few moments later, the two brothers inside finally quieted down. Jax clutched his swollen forehead, tears in his eyes, and glared at Finn. Finn, you flicked me 12 times. That's 2 extra. Finn's voice was calm. Are you going to return them? Jax was silent. He wanted to, but he didn't have the guts. Let's go. Can you even keep up with the boss's speed? Jax grumbled. Finn said nothing more and was about to start the truck when they heard the sharp screech of tires. Almost simultaneously, a chaotic burst of gunfire shattered the silent night. Bang, 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 bang. The two brothers jolted in surprise. Finn immediately started the truck and sped after the sound. In the gatehouse, the old man had just picked up his cup of liquor when the sudden gunfire startled him. He lost his grip, and the cup fell to the floor, shattering. These young people have no morals, he grumbled. Scaring an old man in the middle of the night is one thing, but now they're setting off firecrackers? Aren't they afraid of disturbing all the ancestors on this mountain? The Raptor sped down the mountain road. As it rounded the first bend, its bright headlights illuminated the scene ahead. Ethan's GTR was stopped sideways in the middle of the road. 2 Hummers were parked side by side in front of it, gunmen firing relentlessly at the sports car. It had all happened too fast. Ethan had been lost in thought, his mind replaying memories of the past. Not long after turning the corner on the downhill slope, 2 muscular Hummers had appeared, and the men inside had immediately opened fire. Fortunately, Ethan's reflexes were sharp. He yanked the handbrake, sliding the car sideways across the road. In the same motion, he threw open the door and dove out, taking cover behind the front of the car, using the engine and wheel hub as a shield from the heavy fire. Movies always have those ridiculous scenes where people use car doors to block bullets. In reality, most cars are no better than cardboard against firearms, especially a GTR, which is built for speed and stripped of all excess weight. Aside from the engine block and wheels, the entire car offered no real protection, and that was just against handguns. Against a high-powered assault rifle like an AK-47, even the wheel hub wouldn't last long. Although Ethan had a gun, the enemy's firepower was too intense. He was pinned down, unable to show his head. He glanced back and saw the lights from the bend in the road growing stronger. Finn and Jack were on their way. A moment later, the gunfire lessened. Ethan knew they were reloading. He seized the opportunity, dropped to the ground, and rolled onto his side. Firing through the GTR's open driver's side window, he took out one gunman before quickly ducking back behind cover. The purpose of this was to show the enemy that he was armed and a good shot, a deterrent to keep them from rushing him while he bought time for Finn and Jax to arrive. In a life-or-death battle, every second counts. As expected, though some of the enemy had gotten out of their vehicles, they didn't dare to charge. Instead, they laid down suppressing fire while slowly advancing. Ethan saw a pair of feet under his car, fired, and brought the man down. He followed up with a shot to the head. From the way the man held his gun and reacted, he wasn't a professional shooter, more like a common gangster. Just then, the raptor roared onto the scene, immediately drawing all the fire. Finn saw that Ethan was unharmed and, though he had expected it, couldn't help but feel a wave of relief. At the same time, Jax scrambled into the backseat and pulled out two American-made M16s from under the seat, a little souvenir shipped express from his very hospitable hometown. While common abroad, they were a rare sight here. With guns in hand, Finn reacted just as Ethan had. Before he even reached the firefight, he slammed on the brakes, turning the truck sideways across the road. As he killed the headlights, both brothers leaped out and opened fire. A gunfight of this scale was a small affair for them. Jax's face showed no sign of panic, let alone the man who was like a god of death. With covering fire, Ethan could finally breathe. He raised his gun and began his counterattack. The three brothers' coordination was flawless. With two M16s providing overwhelming firepower, the tide of the battle turned instantly. The enemy was pinned down, unable to even peek out. Under this fierce cover, Ethan was free to move. After shooting out the enemy's headlights, he began to pick them off one by one. Finn had turned off their lights, so Ethan could better hide in the darkness. The enemy gunman felt like a phantom was sniping them, with nearly every shot being a headshot. When they returned fire toward the muzzle flash, the phantom was already gone, only to reappear in another direction moments later. It was impossible to defend against. Soon, the gunfire dwindled to a few sporadic shots. Finn tossed his M16 to the ground, pulling a pistol and his kukri from his belt. He crouched low and charged forward like a panther. Seeing this, Ethan deliberately exposed himself to draw the fire of the remaining men. At the same moment, Finn reached the back of the Hummer. With a single slash of his knife, he severed a gunman's hand at the wrist. He then pressed the barrel of his pistol to another man's forehead. Amidst blood-curdling screams, Finn's face was expressionless. His lips moved. Contain. Ethan put away his gun and strode toward Finn. Jax went around and put another bullet into each of the 7 bodies on the ground, ensuring there were no survivors. Who sent you? Ethan's eyes were dark. He glanced at the man whose hand had been chopped off, then turned to the other. The gunman, with Finn's gun pressed to his head, didn't dare move. He knelt on the ground, trembling. I'm just a lackey. I don't know anything. A wicked smile touched Ethan's lips. Looks like the shock gave you amnesia. He glanced at Finn. Finn immediately grabbed the gunman whose hand he had severed. He reversed his blade and began hacking at the man, sending blood flying. The kneeling gunman watched his fingers, an ear, and pieces of flesh rain down in front of him. His pupils contracted, and his pants grew wet. He covered his mouth and began to retch. After Finn had butchered the man, Ethan kicked the sole survivor, who was now scared out of his wits. Feeling better now, he taunted. Remembered anything? The intense fear made it hard for the man to breathe. He was drenched in a cold sweat. I can't say. I'll die if I do. Seeing he was still defiant, Finn bent down and raised his kukri to strike. Caleb Shaw. It was Caleb Shaw, the gunman screamed. Ethan sighed. In truth, the moment he realized the gunmen weren't professionals, he had suspected Caleb were the remnants of the Yates family. The people from 10 years ago were not this sloppy. He had held back because his brothers were right behind him and he was already injured. There was no need to play the lone hero. Seeing Finn look to him for confirmation, Ethan's voice was grim. Keep him. He's useful. He then took out his phone and called Victor. Hello, son. Victor's voice was sleepy. He had probably been asleep. You need to tell me about the Shaw family. That leech doesn't seem to be a very obedient child. I'm a bit confused as to how I offended him. I'd like to go ask. Victor was stunned. He came after you again? Ethan chuckled faintly. Trouble? Heh, not really. He just sent 9 gunmen to try and kill me. Victor was silent for a long moment. You wait for my call, he said, his voice dark. As soon as he hung up, Jax frowned and pointed at Ethan's back. Boss, your wound has reopened. Let's go to the hospital. Ethan nodded and looked at the Raptor. Is the truck okay? Jax replied, it's got a lot of bullet holes, but it should still run. Ethan smacked his lips, eyeing the 2 Hummers. These muscle cars can really take a beating. We should get a few to play with. Finn, bring this guy. Finn acknowledged the order. Ignoring the gunman's pleas, he used his kukri to pierce through the man's hands, pinning them together to prevent any funny business. He then drove the Raptor over and shoved the man into the back seat. Meanwhile, Jax removed the license plate from the GTR. Once everything was done, the three of them got into the truck. After driving some distance, Ethan took out his gun, aimed at the GTR's gas tank, and fired several shots. Boom! After getting his wound treated at the hospital, Ethan received a call from Victor. Come to the Red Tower. I've arranged a meeting with them. Ethan was impatient. Just tell me what the deal is with this so-called Shaw family. I'll handle this myself. Victor sighed. Son, just be patient for now. Come to the Red Tower and we'll talk. Ethan didn't reply. He hung up and thought for a moment before deciding to go. Half an hour later, the three brothers arrived at the Red Tower with their captive. Victor's bodyguards were waiting at the door and led them to a private room on the third floor. Inside, Victor sat in the main seat. To his right was a man in his 30s, Caleb's brother, Felix Shaw. Caleb himself stood lazily behind his brother. The rest of the men in the room were their respective bodyguards. Seeing Ethan enter, Felix immediately stood up and extended a hand with a smile. Mr. Vance, a pleasure to finally meet you. Victor, all smiles, made the introduction. Son, this is Caleb's brother, Mr. Shaw. Ethan completely ignored the offered hand of friendship. Without even looking at Felix, he stared at Caleb. You little mutt, did I dig up your family's graves? He dragged the captured gunman forward and kicked him to his knees. Here, he snarled, take a look with your dog eyes. This is one of your lackeys, isn't it? Victor sighed. Son, let's talk nicely. Ethan shot him a glare. I'm already being polite. If it weren't for my two bodyguards tonight, I wouldn't be alive. The kneeling gunman looked up at him with a strange expression, thinking he was like the Grim Reaper during the gunfight, and now he's spouting this nonsense? Why can't I get a boss who gives his bodyguards all the credit? Faced with Ethan's furious questioning, Caleb just smiled faintly, staring back at him without a word. Felix retracted his hand, not looking the least bit awkward. Mr. Vance, please calm down. My father is taking tonight's events very seriously and extends his deepest apologies. He's not in Port Sterling today, so he asked me to come and offer you a sincere apology on his behalf. This brother of mine, Ethan didn't want to hear the sanctimonious bullshit. An apology, is it? How about I kill him and then come apologize to you? Son, don't be so angry, Victor interjected. Let's resolve this peacefully. A flicker of coldness passed through Felix's eyes, but his expression remained unchanged. Mr. Vance, I know you're very angry. Today, besides apologizing, I'm also here to resolve this matter. Ethan sneered. Ow. Let me tell you, I don't care who you are, and maybe you have more money than me, but I'm not short on cash. You misunderstand, Felix said, picking up a bottle of high-end vodka. As he poured, he said, the resolution I'm talking about is very simple. As he finished speaking, Felix suddenly spun around and smashed the bottle over Caleb's head. Crack! Caleb, caught off guard, was knocked to the ground, blood instantly pouring from his head. The scene shocked everyone, except Victor, who looked unfazed and continued to play the peacemaker. Oh my, why the violence? Let's resolve this peacefully. Felix glanced at Ethan, took off his watch, and rolled up his sleeves. Mr. Vance, could you please step back? He then picked up a nearby chair and began to mercilessly beat Caleb with it. Watching the display, you'd never guess they were brothers. It looked more like they had a blood feud. Caleb curled into a ball, protecting his head. He was hit more than a dozen times, but didn't make a sound. You animal, didn't I warn you not to cause me any more trouble? Huh. After a final furious shout, Felix turned the chair on the surviving gunman, smashing him over the head 2 or 3 times until his face was a bloody mess. I hired you bodyguards to protect him, not to join him in his foolishness. Felix threw the chair down and grabbed the gunman's hair. My father and I just warned him the night before last not to make an enemy of the Vance family. And tonight you go looking for trouble? Caleb has always listened to me. I know you're the closest to him. Were you the one egging him on? The gunman held his head, his face contorted in pain, not daring to look at Felix. You dogs deserve to die. Felix glanced at one of his own bodyguards. The man understood immediately, drew a gun, and shot the gunman in the head. Bang! After the gunshot, the room fell into a dead, eerie silence. Victor shook his head and sighed. Oh, why did it have to come to this? It really wasn't necessary. Ethan frowned. He had never intended to let the gunman live anyway. He had only brought him to the Red Tower as evidence in case the Shaws tried to deny it. He hadn't expected Felix to use him as a scapegoat, clearly implying that Caleb had been manipulated by others into causing trouble. For Felix, the Shaw family wasn't afraid of Victor, and resolving it this way was a way of giving the Vance face and avoiding a conflict between the two families. Mr. Vance, I know you're probably still angry, Felix said. But no matter what, this animal is my brother. I sincerely apologize to you. Since he was also incited by others, let's just let this matter go. Just as Ethan was about to speak, Victor cut in. All right, son. Just calm down and let it go. Ethan looked at his father, who gave him a look that said, take the win and move on. He thought about his top priority, dealing with the masterminds from 10 years ago. One less problem was better than one more. After a moment's thought, he glared at Caleb, who was being helped up by a bodyguard. We can let it go, but you'd better tell me. How the hell did I piss you off, huh? What made you come after me like a rabid dog? Caleb licked the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled grimly. I just don't like the look of you. Slap. Felix backhanded him across the face. Shut your mouth. Haven't you embarrassed us enough? Animal. He then turned back to Ethan, his expression instantly softening. It was just a small misunderstanding. I promise, he won't bother you again. Just then, Sienna Sterling entered the room with several women dressed in similar cheongsams. Her eyes swept over Ethan's face, then down to the corpse on the floor. She glared at Felix, her tone icy. Mr. Shaw, you've really outdone yourself. You dare to fire a gun in the Red Tower. Felix's lips tightened. My apologies, Ms. Sterling. I was dealing with a family matter and got a little emotional. I apologize for the intrusion. Oomph. Sienna snorted. For your father's sake, I'll let it slide this time. If there's a next time, I'll make sure you regret it. Now get out. A flicker of something crossed Felix's eyes. He led his men out of the room. On his way out, Caleb glanced at Sienna, as if shamed in front of the woman he loved. He clenched his fists, then looked at Ethan, his blood-stained face holding a smile that hid a dagger. Outside the Red Tower, Felix slapped Caleb several more times. You worthless piece of trash. Are you deaf? I told you not to mess with the Vances. Who do you think you are? 9 gunmen taken out by 2 of his bodyguards? Where does that leave our family's reputation? Huh? You embarrassing piece of trash. Caleb ignored his brother's tirade, a faint, mocking smile fixed on his face. Just then, Felix's bodyguard spoke up. That Vance kid, there's something not right about him. It wasn't just his 2 bodyguards that saved him tonight. Felix turned to him. What do you mean? While the fact that 2 men could defeat 9 without a scratch was unbelievable, it wasn't unheard of for a wealthy heir to have a few highly skilled protectors. The man speaking now was a retired Special Forces soldier he had hired at great expense. He could have easily handled the thugs Caleb sent tonight. Besides, Ethan's public persona had always been that of a useless playboy. Who would ever suspect that a rich kid was a master of lethal force? The bodyguard frowned, recalling the scene in the room. When I fired the gun, he didn't react at all. He didn't even blink. A normal person, even if they just heard a firecracker, would flinch. At the very least, they would blink reflexively. But when the gun went off in the room, Ethan's only reaction was a slight look of surprise. There was nothing else. It was completely unnatural. Unless he had been through so much gunfire that he had become numb to it. Felix's brow furrowed. Are you saying Victor's bastard son might have some skills of his own? Not might. Definitely, the bodyguard stated firmly. That calm reaction. Even most soldiers can't do that. Only someone who has been on a real battlefield, who has experienced life and death. And those 2 bodyguards, they aren't ordinary either, especially the one with the cross on his chest. I can feel it. He has a very strong killing intent. Felix pictured Finn's harmless-looking face. He didn't seem like a man with blood on his hands. Then he thought of Ethan, the arrogant playboy who never tried to keep a low profile, who acted like he wasn't afraid of anything. How could it be? But the facts of tonight were undeniable. He had to believe his bodyguard. Have the men who went to Hillcrest to clean up reported back yet? Felix asked. They reported back a while ago. Everything is taken care of. That Vance kid blew up his own car, and he was careful enough to remove the license plate. The only things left at the scene were our men and our vehicles. Not long after my men finished, the police went up the mountain. It was a close call, but we're clear. Good. Felix nodded, murmuring, outnumbered, yet all 3 of them were unscathed, and they cleaned up their mess perfectly. Impressive, young master, the bodyguard said to Caleb, his tone far less respectful than it was with Felix. For your own good, don't provoke them again. His voice was cool. If he wants to cause trouble for you, I'll handle it. But please know your limits. If you fight him, you will die. Caleb glanced at the nearly 40-year-old bodyguard and sneered. Are you lecturing me now? Who the hell do you think you are? The words had barely left his mouth before Felix slapped him. Animal. Humph. I'm curious, though. Why do you have such a problem with him, huh? Caleb clutched his face. Nothing, he said coldly. Just don't like him. I didn't even plan to make a big deal out of it. At first, I just wanted to beat him up. Heh, why do you have to fight back? If he had just let me beat him up, it would have been over. Felix looked at his arrogant, tyrannical, and almost inhuman younger brother, his hands trembling with rage. He slapped him several more times. You dog, if Mom hadn't begged me, I would have sent you abroad first thing in the morning. I'm reminding you one last time. The federal task force is still in Port Sterling. Don't cause any trouble. The blows sent Caleb stumbling. He steadied himself against a wall, wiped the blood from his nose with the back of his hand, and licked it with a sick smile. Back in the private room at the Red Tower, after Felix and his men left, even though they had taken the bodyguard's corpse, the bloodstains on the floor still displeased Sienna. She stared at Victor. Mr. Vance, I don't need to remind you of the rules of the Red Tower, do I? I don't want there to be a next time. Victor chuckled and stood up, offering a few words of apology. He said to Ethan, let's go, let's go. It's getting late. Ethan, simmering with anger, didn't respond. As he turned to leave, Sienna blocked his path. Hey, she chided. Do you not recognize me? You're not even going to say hello. Ethan forced a smile. I was just about to. Just say hello and leave. Sienna pouted. You fired a gun and spilled blood in here tonight. According to the rules, I should at least revoke your red card. Ethan didn't hesitate, pulling out the card and holding it out to her. Sienna didn't take it. She was visibly angry, her brow furrowed. And you call yourself a playboy? You don't even know how to placate a girl? When your wife gets angry, is this how you treat her? Ethan said seriously, she's my wife. Of course it's different. You. Sienna pouted, glaring at him. Victor, having put on his coat, looked at his son with a hint of reproach. Ethan, is that any way to talk to Ms. Sterling? We were in the wrong today. You should apologize properly. I'll wait for you in the car. No rush. Ethan was speechless. Sienna smiled. Then you have a safe trip, Mr. Vance. I won't see you out. No need, no need. You two carry on. Victor waved his hand. At the door, he glanced at Finn and Jax. What are you two waiting for? Let's go. Sienna also turned to her staff. You can all leave for now. We'll clean the room later. I have something to discuss with Mr. Vance. Yes, manager. After everyone had left, Sienna's demeanor changed completely. She bit her lower lip coquettishly and gestured toward a nearby chair, signaling for Ethan to sit. Ethan thought for a moment, then held out the red card again. Are you going to take it back or not? I have things to do, so I won't sit. Whether I take it back depends on my mood, Sienna smiled. Just sit down. I just want to talk to you. I'm not going to eat you, honestly. Looking slightly helpless, Ethan sat down and lit a cigarette. What do you want to talk about? Can't we just catch up? Sienna sat beside him, her enchanting eyes fixed on his face, her smile like a spring breeze. Ethan glanced at the blood on the floor. Sienna, you've changed a lot. You're not even fazed by a dead body. If I didn't have this much courage, how could I be the general manager of the Red Tower? I'm not that timid little girl anymore. Sienna laughed. Big brother Ethan, who do you think is better? The old Sienna or the new one? Ethan deliberately kept his distance. I don't know either of them well. So unromantic. Just then, as if on cue, Isabel called Ethan's phone. A smile unconsciously spread across Ethan's lips. He answered, Honey, you miss me? You, don't call me that. Hearing the reproachful tone on the other end of the line, Ethan pictured Isabel's flustered face, and his smile grew even wider. Why are you still up so late? Does your foot still hurt? No, Mr. Henderson just called me. He said several big influencers want to terminate their contracts and are causing a scene at the office. He asked me what to do. Ethan sighed. That idiot. I told him not to bother you. I'm going to have his ass when I get to the office tomorrow. Isabel scoffed. Be serious. You're a grown man. He just didn't want to disturb you so late. Is something wrong at the hub? It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Just get some rest. I'll handle it. Okay. How's your wound? Did you go to the hospital to get it redressed today? I did. It's much better. Worried about me, are you? Listening to the couple's sweet nothings, Sienna's pretty face darkened, her eyes rolling so far back they nearly popped out. After a moment, a cunning glint appeared in the eyes of the Cheongsam-clad beauty. She slowly stood up. While Ethan was still bickering with Isabel, she suddenly leaned over, wrapped her arms around his neck, and her red lips pressed firmly against his. The sudden kiss caught Ethan completely off guard. He never imagined Sienna Sterling would do something so brazen. His mind went blank for a full second before he instinctively tried to lean back, but Sienna's arms wrapped tightly around his neck, holding him in place. To make matters worse, she bit his lip. Ethan was still holding his phone in one hand. In his shock, his other hand reflexively pushed against her chest, merely trying to shove the crazy woman off him. but the soft, yielding sensation that met his palm told him he'd landed somewhere he shouldn't have. On the other end of the line, Isabel faintly heard a muffled sound, a sort of struggling whimper. Confused, she asked, "Ethan, what are you doing?" Ethan's free hand shot up, gripping Sienna's jaw and easily forcing her mouth open. "Just having a late-night snack." He managed to reply to Isabel, glaring a warning at Sienna. Sienna, however, simply rubbed her jaw where he'd squeezed it, one hand still draped over his neck as she smoothly settled onto his lap. She let out a wounded sigh. "You're hurting me." Ethan froze. Isabel heard Sienna's voice, clear as day. There was a long pause before she spoke again, her tone cool and detached. "I'll let you get back to it then." "Izzy, wait, listen to me," Ethan said, trying to sound calm. "I'm really just eating. If you don't believe me, I'll video call you right now." As soon as the words were out of his mouth, Sienna grinned wickedly and pointed to the corner of his lip. Ethan touched it. "Blood. How could he possibly video call her now?" "You don't have to prove anything to me," Isabel said, her voice perfectly even. "We're fake. Let's leave it at that. You're busy." Her composure was absolute, but after she hung up, her hand tightened around her phone, an inexplicable wave of disappointment washing over her. The Ice Queen, who had never understood the intricacies of love, was even less aware that her feelings for Ethan had shifted into something strange and new. Especially after their near-death experience on North Mountain. The feeling had been surfacing more and more frequently, a confusing, indefinable sensation. It was something like the unexpected joy she felt whenever she saw him. Hearing the sudden chill in his wife's voice, Ethan felt a surge of fury. He slapped his phone down on the table and glared at the culprit perched on his lap. "Are you insane? Get off. You've already got a feel, and now you're playing innocent." Sienna's laughter was a cascade of silver bells. She raised a hand to wipe the blood from his lip, but Ethan slapped it away. "Get off. Don't make me get rough." "Rough?" Her voice was a purr. "I'd love to see that." "Hiff, hiff, hey." Ethan was speechless. He finally understood the frustration Isabel must feel every time she told him to be serious. Seeing that Sienna had no intention of moving, Ethan's patience snapped. He grabbed her shoulder with one hand, clamped his other around her waist, and unceremoniously dumped her onto the adjacent chair. He stood, ready to leave. But Sienna grabbed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Her tone turned into a pout. "Are you really angry?" "Let go," Ethan said, his voice cold as ice. A strange smile played on her lips. "Don't be so petty. I bet from the beginning that your marriage was a sham. Your wife just confirmed it for me." "Hith. I'm guessing the term is 3 years, right?" Ethan's brow furrowed. He wasn't surprised she could guess the marriage was fake. But how did she know the duration? Besides him and Victor, only Isabel and her father knew that detail. Sienna saw his confusion and laughed again, a throaty, confident sound. "Isabel married you for sanctuary, didn't she? Because her father got into trouble. And Arthur Thorne was sentenced to 3 years. So, I figured, once he's out, she won't need your protection anymore. Am I right?" "You have a wild imagination," Ethan said, his face unreadable. "Say what you will." Sienna paused, her tone playful. "Don't be angry. Think of the kiss as my way of repaying you for saving my life." "There's no debt to repay," Ethan said flatly. "If you had jumped back then, I wouldn't have turned around." Sienna bit her lip, lowering her head in silence. After a moment, a faint blush crept up her cheeks, and she looked unexpectedly shy, as if she'd reverted to a teenager. "Maybe it was nothing to you, but because of you, I found the courage to live. Big brother Ethan, there's something I've wanted to tell you for a long, long time. I like you. I've liked you for many, many years." As she spoke, she could feel her heart pounding her chest, just as it had during her teenage years, every time she'd accidentally run into him in their old neighborhood. Ethan just rolled his eyes. "This is ridiculous. Here's your card back. We shouldn't see each other again. I don't want my wife to get the wrong idea." Sienna looked at the red card he held out, but didn't take it. A film of moisture gathered in her eyes. "You think I got where I am today by selling my body, don't you?" she said, her voice barely a whisper. You think I'm dirty?" Ethan was exasperated. "I've never thought that. And even if you had, I wouldn't look down on you. A person's dignity is their own to give. Who gives a damn what anyone else thinks?" She looked up, her gaze searing. "Really, I'm a married man," Ethan said, sidestepping the question. "And I really hate people who try to break up a marriage." "Big brother Ethan, if your marriage were real, I wouldn't interfere," she pleaded. "But it's fake. Give me a chance. I'll wait for you for 3 years. It's not like you and your wife can have a real relationship anyway. There's no future there." Ethan's brow tightened. How do you know about Isabel's condition? Sienna took a deep breath. Port Sterling isn't that big. It's not hard for the Red Tower to find things out. You don't think I was investigating her to do something to her, do you? I wouldn't. How could I do something like that? Am I really that despicable in your eyes? A woman of the world rarely cared what others thought. But for Sienna, how Ethan saw her mattered more than anything. Ethan stared at her for a long time, then shoved the membership card into her hand. Here, goodbye. Sienna looked down at the red card, then back up at his resolute back as he walked away. She slowly closed her eyes. When they opened again, her expression had returned to its usual seductive mask. You probably want to know the truth about your mother's murder 10 years ago, don't you? She called out, her voice smooth as silk. Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. He turned, his gaze locking onto Sienna, his voice dangerously low. What do you know? Don't get me wrong. I only know that 10 years ago, your mother was killed, you were kidnapped, and you vanished without a trace. Then, 2 years ago, you suddenly reappeared in Port Sterling. At the time, I wasn't sure if you came back for Chloe Miller, the girl who had you wrapped around her finger in school, or if you came back for revenge. Sienna offered a sad smile. Later, when you returned to the Vance family, I thought you were just heartbroken and had a revelation, indulging in women and wealth. But your recent actions, especially tonight, Caleb Shaw couldn't even kill you. That's when I realized, you're not so simple, are you? You came back for revenge. Ethan's eyes were like chips of ice. Is that all? A flicker of disappointment crossed Sienna's face. She gave a bitter laugh. Your father has been investigating for years with no progress. What do you think I could possibly know? Honestly. But since you want revenge, I'll definitely help you investigate. So, you should keep the red card. What if I find something and you can't even get into the Red Tower to see me? That would be a shame, wouldn't it? Head. Ethan's gaze darkened as he stared at the woman from his past. The news of his own kidnapping had never been made public, and Milo hadn't been able to dig up anything about Isabel's condition, yet Sienna had found out with ease. The intelligence-gathering capabilities of the Red Tower were formidable. Here, take it, Sienna said, holding the card out to him again. And don't look at me like that, like I'm your enemy. I know you probably don't trust me, but I genuinely want to help you. Nothing else. Consider it me repaying a debt. Of course, she added with a wink, I'm also hungry for your body. If I really help you get your revenge, you can. Spend a night with me? Hey. Ethan considered this for a moment, then asked abruptly, who owns the Red Tower? Sienna was a smart woman. She knew exactly why he was asking. She rolled her eyes. You're the first person who's dared to ask that question in the Red Tower. Aren't you afraid you won't make it out of here? Ugh, you think I know about your past because my backer told me, don't you? I can swear it has nothing to do with him. I found out everything myself. And why? Because I like you. Oof, you're so suspicious. Am I really that untrustworthy? Ethan took a breath. After a moment's hesitation, he took the red card. Thanks, he said coolly, and strode out of the private room. Though he currently despised the woman, his thirst for vengeance was all-consuming. What if she could actually help? From the doorway of the room, Sienna watched his retreating figure, a smile playing on her lips, though her eyes held a trace of bitterness. Her original plan had only been a flirt with him, not to be so aggressive. But she hadn't expected the scoundrel to flaunt his affection for Isabel right in front of her. She knew their marriage was a transaction. She'd recently learned about Isabel's psychological issues, how she couldn't even be touched by a man. How could they possibly have feelings for each other? Ethan's display was just a polite rejection, a response to the interest he sensed from her. She understood that perfectly. That's what had set her off, prompting her to make a move. It was also a test. She'd arranged for 2 stunning women for him before, and he hadn't touched them. While he was angry at the time and not in the mood, it had still made her suspicious. This little drama had confirmed it. Ethan's Playboy act was just that, an act. His first reaction to her advances was genuine awkwardness, not the smooth response of a seasoned womanizer. But at the same time, she'd been stunned to discover that he truly had feelings for Isabel. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten so angry. When she saw she'd pushed him too far and he was ready to cut ties completely, she played her trump card, mentioning Isabel's condition. She wanted to show him the Red Tower's reach, then naturally bring up the events of 10 years ago. That way, for the sake of the bigger picture, he would have to take the card back, ensuring future contact between them. Feelings, after all, weren't just about a spark. They had to be nurtured over time. Love grows, and she refused to believe that her worldly charm couldn't win out over a cold, untouchable vase. 3 years. Even in 30 years, that Ice Queen probably couldn't build a real relationship with him. Meanwhile, Ethan walked out of the Red Tower and headed straight for the parking lot. Victor Vance was in his Maybach video chatting with a young woman. When he heard the car door open, he quickly ended the call and turned to see Ethan get in. Noticing the new injury on his son's lip, he simply smiled without a word. Ethan shot him a glare. I want the bottom line. What the hell is the deal with the Shaw family? Victor smacked his lips. It's over. Just be patient a little longer. Patient. Ethan seethed. Did you see that bastard, Caleb? Do you think he knows the meaning of the word? This time, his father will discipline him properly. He'll be patient whether he likes it or not, Victor said with a smile. Son, I'll give you my guarantee. If he tries anything again, you won't have to lift a finger. I'll make him disappear. There are second chances, but not third or fourth. I don't want to provoke them, but that doesn't mean I'm afraid of them. Ethan found it laughable. He failed to kill me this time. Next time, he'll be better prepared. I'm afraid I'll disappear before he does. You think you're so easy to get rid of? Victor's expression was peculiar. Ethan rolled his eyes. Victor, when did you become such a coward? Taking punches and insults without fighting back? Is this still you? Victor sighed. I'm thinking of the bigger picture. Right now is the critical moment for the Yates acquisition. Caleb Shaw's father could be a great help. Besides, if I go to war with him, Walter and the second branch will jump at the chance to get close to him. That would create too many variables, and things would get very difficult. Ethan's eyes glinted in the dim light. After a moment of silence, he pulled out a cigarette and stuck it between his lips. How powerful is Caleb's father? Victor just smiled and shook his head. Don't ask about that for now. Let's just say he's not insignificant. I don't care how significant he is, Ethan said, his voice turning frigid. Next time, I'll send him and his son on a one-way trip. Getting rid of a major corrupt official would be a service to the world. A service to the world? Do you even know what the law of the world is? Heh. Victor chuckled softly. Everyone hates a corrupt politician. But if they had the chance, who wouldn't want to be one? And once you're in power, who doesn't become greedy? Forget politics. In every profession under the sun, you'll find very few saints, but you'll find greed everywhere. The powerless complain about the injustice of the powerful. The poor complain about the decadence of the rich. But if you put them in that same position, they wouldn't be any better. They'd be worse. That's real human nature, son. The selfishness and greed that's baked into our bones. Look out for number one, or get wiped off the map. That is the law of nature. Ethan didn't argue. He just smoked in silence. The truth is often raw, and raw truth is hard to hear. But the only reason it's hard to hear is because it strikes a chord deep inside you. You, Victor continued, his tone paternal, need to rein in that murderous impulse. In this world, the last people you want to touch are those in power. Sometimes, you have to be flexible. Look at how I dealt with Everett Yates. I didn't need to use knives or guns. A flick of the wrist was all it took to land him in prison. I didn't take his life, but right now, he's probably wishing he were dead. Heh. Ethan took a drag from his cigarette. After a moment, he asked, what's the situation with Walter's branch and the second branch? They're both trying to prove themselves to your grandfather. They've practically come to blows over that overseas project. The old man is furious. He didn't say anything about you acquiring the Yates family. What could he say? Victor chuckled. He's the one who made me withdraw from the overseas project. I took down the Yates family in my spare time. He should be praising me. Ethan considered this. Once you finish the acquisition, your power will grow significantly. I'm afraid the old man will have to reevaluate the balance of power. Victor nodded. Exactly, which is why you need to maintain your current image. Don't let him start paying attention to you. Ethan fell silent. After finishing his cigarette, Ethan casually told Victor to be careful, then got out of the car and headed back to Emerald Lake Estates with Finn and Jax. On the way, Ethan called Isabel. He was nervous she wouldn't pick up, but the call connected after just a few rings. Yes. Izzy, are you asleep? Yes. Hearing that cold, one-word answer, Ethan felt a pang of regret. He would have preferred it if she had hung up on him in anger. After a brief silence, he tried to joke. Izzy, aren't you going to ask me what happened? Aren't you worried someone is after your husband's body? I'm telling you, I really was just eating. Don't get the wrong idea. Isabel cut him off. There's no wrong idea to get. We're fake. What you do is none of my business. Her words crushed him. All the progress he'd made in getting her to slowly accept him had been obliterated in one easy move by Sienna Sterling. I'm tired, Isabel said. Ethan took a deep breath and reluctantly replied, well, good night. Any further explanation would be pointless. The more he explained, the guiltier he would sound. He stared at his phone for a long time before typing out a message. Izzy, I won't do anything to hurt you. Trust me. The message sank without a trace. As Ethan was stewing in his disappointment, Finn spoke up from the front seat. Boss, the man who fired the gun tonight. He's not simple. Hey, I was just about to say that. Jax added. He looked at me once. The feeling, it was like when Finn looks at me. No emotion, but just makes you uncomfortable. Ethan had noticed it too. He'd even observed the man for a few moments, but his mind had been preoccupied with other things. Now that his men brought it up, he recalled the bodyguard, about 40, with a distinct knife scar on his jaw, a lean build, and a posture that screamed ex-military. And the calluses on the web of his right hand were thick. Everyone be careful for a while, Ethan said. A few days passed. On Saturday evening, Isabel was having dinner with Lily when Dr. Zoe Russell sent her a few paparazzi photos of Ethan. There were shots of him in a bar with an arm around a woman on each side, pictures of him shopping in luxury stores with a socialite, and photos of him entering a hotel with a starlet. He was living up. Isabel couldn't be bothered to look closely. She scrolled up quickly. At the bottom was a voice message from Zoe. I haven't paid attention to the entertainment news for a few days, but I just took a look, and your dog of a man is making headlines again. See? I told you he couldn't be trusted. He acted all high and mighty with me, swearing he wouldn't hurt you. Huh. A leopard can't change its spots. Don't you dare trust him again. Isabel remained unperturbed. She placed her phone on the table and continued eating. Lily glanced at her timidly. Ma'am, young mister, Vance isn't really the type to party all the time. When he's at home, he doesn't drink at all, and he's always reading. I told you not to call me ma'am, Isabel said with a hint of a smile. You're not much younger than me. Just call me Isabel. Lily nodded. Okay, Isabel, young mister, Vance really isn't as bad as people say. Let's eat, Isabel said, smiling as she put some food on her plate. After dinner, while Lily was washing the dishes, Isabel leaned back on the sofa, picked up her phone, and after a moment's hesitation, opened her message thread with Ethan. She slowly scrolled down. It was filled with photos and videos he had sent her. The truth was, the first time Ethan had gone out to play these past few days, he had reported to her in advance, explaining it was all an act for his grandfather. Then, every few minutes, he'd sent her a video or a photo, as if desperately trying to prove his innocence. Last night, especially, when he'd taken a new starlet from his own company to a hotel, he had spent the entire hour on a video call with her, seriously discussing work. Countless pieces of proof, and Isabel hadn't replied to a single one. But looking at them again now, she couldn't help but find it a little amusing. She muttered to herself, idiot. But then, the memory of the voice she'd heard on the phone that night, you're hurting me, surfaced, and the faint smile on the Ice Queen's face vanished. She didn't know why she kept thinking about that phrase, or why it made her so unhappy. She only vaguely sensed that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to care about him. At the same time, Ethan was also sitting on a sofa, staring at his phone, his screen open to his chat with Isabel. For days, outside of work, she had completely ignored him, reverting to her old, distant self. It left him feeling unsettled, even lost. He thought about going to see her and explaining things in person, but the bite mark from Sienna was still visible on his lip. On top of that, he was currently playing bait, and he had to be wary of Caleb Shaw. He was probably being watched. The more distant he was from Isabel, the safer she would be. He stared blankly for a while, composing a long, heartfelt message, only to delete it all with a single keystroke. Behind a screen, even the most touching words were just hollow ghosts. It was better to deal with the immediate crisis and then go comfort her in person. But the fish was stubbornly refusing to bite the hook. All his worrying was for nothing. There was another problem. If this dragged on for too long, his enemies would surely guess that Jean Marshall was already dead. That entire lead would go cold. Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose, closing his eyes in thought. A moment later, an idea struck him. He opened his eyes, grabbed his phone, and dialed Ron Wallace. Hey, nephew. Ron Wallace's voice was loud and boisterous, with a lot of noise in the background. It sounded like he was on a film set. Still busy? Ethan asked. You bet. The script for my new movie finally got approved. We're doing the opening ceremony right now. We start shooting for real tomorrow. Oh, congratulations, Ethan said with a smile. Ron's tone turned mournful. Congratulations for what? A perfectly good script got butchered into a complete mess. I don't even know how to shoot it anymore. Damn it. You can't show this. You can't say that. The studio executives are going to be the death of American cinema. Pretty soon, all anyone will be allowed to watch is cartoons. Ethan chuckled. All right, calm down. What time are you done? I'll treat you to dinner. Huh? Ron was taken aback. The wolf inviting the lamb to dinner? What are you up to now? Just give me a time. I'm booking a restaurant. Ethan said impatiently. Cut the crap. Hey now, you brat. Ron said in his signature theatrical drawl. You're in luck. I'm having dinner with your father tonight. 8:30. If you're free, why don't you join us? I wouldn't dare stand him up. Sound good. Send me the location. After hanging up, since it was still early, Ethan took Finn and Jax to the auto shop first. Customizing a sports car was a time-consuming and labor-intensive job. After all this time, his new GTR was only half finished, and that was with the shop's best technicians working overtime. Mr. Vance, your standards are just incredibly high, the shop owner said, sporting dark circles under his eyes. We spent 3 days, day and night, just on the shock absorbers to get them to your specs. Ethan understood their hardship. He clapped the owner on the shoulder. I know it's not easy. Just push through it for me. I really can't get used to driving any other car. Help me out, and you'll be well rewarded. You got it, the owner said with a nod. Everyone in Port Sterling knew how generous this young master was. If it weren't for the money, he wouldn't be working this hard for anyone. Ethan spent a good while at the shop discussing the modifications. It was almost 8 o'clock when the three of them finally drove their newly registered Hummer to the restaurant. When they arrived, a waiter led them to a private room. Finn and Jax didn't go inside, instead finding a couple of chairs in the hallway to sit and stand guard. Ethan entered the room, expecting to see only Victor and Ron, but there were 4 young women there as well, including Kimberly Frost. Seeing her boss, Kimberly immediately stood up and greeted him shyly. Mr. Vance. Ron waved him over with a grin. Nephew, these are actresses from my film. It's our opening ceremony today, so I brought them along for a meal. I'm the main investor in this film, Victor added, looking very dignified. Now that we can finally start shooting, I thought I'd host a little something to encourage everyone. Ethan was speechless. He had come to discuss business, and here these 2 old guys were, holding court like emperors choosing concubines. The reason wealthy men like to invest in movies was partly from money laundering, but the biggest perk was access to starlets. For someone of Victor's status, even without his considerable charm, there was a never-ending line of actresses willing to throw themselves at him. Ethan was reminded of something a famous director once said in an interview. I miss the old days. An investor in a VIP lounge with a starlet on each arm, lecturing me about how the movie absolutely had to promote a wholesome, family-friendly message. Still, it was the first day of Ron's new production, and Ethan needed a favor from him. Not wanting to spoil the mood, he pulled out a chair next to Kimberly, figuring he could talk business after dinner. Ron assumed Ethan wanted to treat him to dinner to apologize for the incident with Leland Monroe. He was the elder, after all, and the brat hadn't shown him any respect last time. He must be feeling a little guilty. Playing the part of the magnanimous elder, he raised his glass to Ethan. Nephew, I didn't take that auction business to heart, so you don't need to feel bad about it. Come on, let's have a drink. It's been too long. Ethan paused for a second, then raised his glass without a change in expression. Feel bad? I was already giving you face last time. What business was that? Victor asked curiously. Ron launched into a dramatic retelling of Ethan's confrontation with Leland, making the whole table roar with laughter. Ethan just pursed his lips, ignoring him and making small talk with Kimberly. Halfway through dinner, Ethan saw that Ron, a notorious drinker, was already tipsy. He smiled. Go easy on the drinks. I've got an after-party planned. I'll take you somewhere fun. At this, Ron's eyes lit up. TSK. My nephew has finally seen the light. My affection for you wasn't wasted after all. All right, I'm all yours tonight. Victor, sensing his son had something to discuss, cleared his throat. Everyone eat up, and let's all drink a little less. We start shooting tomorrow. Don't be late. The mood suddenly grew subdued. Ron pouted. It's only 9 o'clock, still early. It won't affect anything. How about this, Kimberly? The energy's a little low. Why don't you dance for us? Heat things up a bit. Enjoying a dance with a drink was one of Victor's favorite pastimes, and Ron had naturally picked up the habit. Kimberly nodded shyly. As an actress, she wasn't usually fazed by such things, but with her boss present, she felt a little nervous. Just as she was about to stand, Ethan pressed a hand on hers, his voice low. You know how to dance? No, not really, Kimberly whispered, her voice barely audible. We were poor. I could never afford lessons. A few years ago, I was trying to get a small role that required some dancing, so I just taught myself by watching videos online. To put in that much effort for a small role showed how serious she was about her craft. It was no wonder a workaholic like Isabel favored her. Looking at the entertainment industry today, so-called A-listers used number counting to fake their lines, and some never even showed up to set, relying on stand-ins and then having their faces digitally pasted on in post-production for a multi-million-dollar paycheck. Ron blamed the censors for ruining the film industry, but in reality, today's actors were a major contributor. Nephew, I have you two to thank for finding me such a great actress. Kimberly is a true professional. Ron said, flashing his prominent teeth in a grin. He urged her on. Come on, Kimberly, give us a little show, warm things up. The moment the words left his mouth, Ethan's face darkened. Haven't you ever seen someone dance before? The other actresses exchanged nervous glances. A warmth spread through Kimberly's chest. She remembered when Ethan had first taken over Elysian Media and declared he would protect the company's female artists from being exploited. At the time, she thought it was just talk, but he was really protective. Ron's expression froze. He instinctively glanced at Victor. Victor straightened up, his face a mask of righteousness. Honestly, Ron, have some decency. We're having a meal. What's this about watching a dance? Who taught you such a rotten habit? Ron was speechless. I have a few choice words I'd like to say right now, but I don't dare. With the atmosphere now at absolute zero, the remaining actresses sat on pins and needles, not knowing whether to stay or go. Since the mood was already ruined, Ethan didn't bother with pleasantries and waved a hand, dismissing them. After they left, Ethan moved to the seat beside Ron Wallace and clapped him on the shoulder with a sly grin. Hey, what's with the long face? Are you really mad at me? Ron scowled. I just owe you and your father, that's all. You said it, not me. And if you owe us, then you've got to pay back the favor. Ethan said shamelessly. Ron's eye twitched. You little bastard, have you no shame? Victor, aren't you going to do something about him? Victor smiled faintly. I'm the one who really owes him. How could I possibly rein him in? Ethan glanced at his father, then turned back to Ron with a grin. All right, no more jokes. Uncle Ron, I need you to do me a favor. When you need something, I'm Uncle Ron. When you don't, I'm just Ron, he grumbled. What do you want me to do now? Ethan poured 2 glasses of liquor, toasted Ron, then pulled a photograph from his pocket and placed it on the table. Your film set has plenty of extras. It shouldn't be too hard to find someone who looks like the man in this photo, right? Ron popped a piece of food in his mouth to sober up, then turned to look at the photo. One glance was all it took for the famous director to spit everything out. You little bastard. Why are you showing me a picture of a dead guy? You could have given me a warning. Victor leaned over to look. Seeing the face of Gene Gunnar Marshall, he thought for a moment, then smiled knowingly. A man your age, still scared of something like this? Ethan muttered before smiling. Just find someone among your extras who looks like him. The most important thing is the body type. It has to be an almost perfect match. As for the face, your makeup artists are incredible. As long as the facial structure is close, they can make him look 70 or 80% similar, right? Ron took a moment to compose himself, then glanced at the photo again, forcing himself to look. He frowned. What kind of scheme are you cooking up now? Just tell me, is it hard to do or not? There are at least 40 or 50,000 extras in the studio system. Finding someone who fits the description won't be hard. Ron said, then grew serious. But this involves a dead person. Can you really trust some random extra? Nephew, you'd better not be messing around. As long as it's not hard to do, Ethan said with a smile. You just find him. I need a result by tomorrow night. Ron was still uneasy. For years, besides laundering money for Victor through his films, he had never touched any of Victor's other dirty business. For one, he couldn't really help with anything else, and for another, Victor was protecting him. There were some things he was better off not knowing. But now, his nephew wasn't showing any such restraint. Ron, just find a person. There's nothing to worry about, Victor said. Tonight, just pretend you saw nothing. With Victor's reassurance, Ron finally felt at ease. He grumbled at Ethan. You really should learn from your father. Don't be so direct about everything. If you wanted to find an actor, you could have just told me the criteria. Why did you have to show me the photo? Seeing the photo gives you a better idea of what to look for, Ethan said with a grin, raising his glass. This can't be sloppy. Come on, let me toast you again. A few more drinks, and the earlier unpleasantness was forgotten. After the meal, a very drunk Ron asked, Nephew, where did you book for the after party? Ethan looked at him blankly. After party? What after party? Ron was speechless. Victor laughed. You dare go to his after party? You're not afraid he'll work you to death. Go home, and don't forget about tomorrow. Get on it quickly. Find the right person, and I'll get you a proper after party tomorrow. Derek, come here, help director Wallace home. Though Ron was mostly drunk, he could tell the father and son had more to discuss. He didn't press the issue, cracked a few jokes, and let Victor's driver help him out of the room. Now it was just the two of them. Ethan looked at the dishes on the table, picked up a piece of salmon sashimi, and slowly savored it. Victor watched him with a look of deep paternal affection. It's been sitting out for a while. It's probably lost its texture. I can order you a fresh plate. Ethan waved a hand. Don't be so wasteful. To be honest, this is the first time in all these years I've eaten fish. It tastes good. I can swallow it. Once, long ago, after escaping from that cargo ship, Ethan had survived for days on a deserted island. Back then, catching a single fish was a blessing. He'd scrape off the scales with a rock and gnaw on it raw. The nauseating, fishy smell was a memory still burned into his mind. Thinking back, his escape from that hell had been both a surprise and a mystery. In those final days, his mother, Sylvia Vance, had endured torture daily, forced to watch as they carved pieces of flesh from her son, day after day. Finally, her mind and body shattered, she had chosen to end her own life. Ethan didn't know what secret his mother held that was worth such a price, but he knew they had captured him to break her. With her dead, he had no reason to live. To his surprise, they didn't kill him. They stopped the torture. They carefully treated his wounds, removed the dog chain from his neck, and placed him in a small cabin, hooking him up to an 4-drip with antibiotics. It was as if they didn't want him to die. He couldn't understand their motives, but since he had a chance to live, he was determined to take it. Only one thought consumed him: survive. Get revenge. To make his captors lower their guard, he pretended to be unconscious, even feigning incontinence. Gradually, the bald foreigner assigned to guard him couldn't stand it anymore and started sleeping in his own room at night instead of sharing the cramped space. This gave Ethan his chance. In the dead of night, he would sneak out, stealing water and food to hide away. He discovered an inflatable raft on a slanted slipway on the ship's deck. A plan for escape began to take root in his mind. A few days later, the infection in his back began to subside. He knew the time had come. One night, he slipped out of his room as usual. He retrieved his hidden supplies from an inconspicuous trash bag and was about to sneak out of the hold when he ran straight into the bald guard. The guard was drunk, probably on his way to the bathroom, and was shocked to see Ethan. Their eyes met. Seeing the bag in Ethan's hand, the guard instantly realized he was trying to escape. But before he could react, the ship lurched violently, throwing him to the floor. His head slammed against the steel deck, dazing him. In a panic, Ethan wrapped his arms around the guard's neck, squeezing with all his might, terrified the man would cry out. He held on until the guard went limp. No matter how well laid the plan, fate had other ideas. After killing the man, his first kill, Ethan was gripped by terror. It took every ounce of will to calm himself down. He ran out of the hold and onto the deck, only to be met by a howling gale and monstrous, churning waves. It was like being doused with a bucket of ice water. A chill shot through him from head to toe. In this weather, a tiny inflatable raft was a death sentence. But he had killed the guard. There was no turning back. With a storm this big, others would surely be waking up. If he didn't go now, he might never get another chance. Ethan steeled himself. He followed his plan, inflated the raft, and resolutely launched himself away from the cargo ship. He had barely taken a few breaths of free air before a colossal wave swallowed him whole. Perhaps fate wasn't done with him. When he opened his eyes again, he was on a deserted island. The wounds on his back had reopened, and he was covered in blood. The food and water he had prepared were gone, lost with the raft. After days of feral existence, eating what he could find raw, his wounds became infected again. He was on the brink of death when a passing group of pirates saw his signal for help and took him from the island. That day, drifting in and out of consciousness, Ethan overheard the pirates chatter and finally learned where he was, in the waters off the Somali coast.